Going, and live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the pre-show of the N10-007 Network Plus study group for today. All new questions in every study group. There's somebody who mentioned this earlier in the week, that it's the same questions every week. It is not. I think you're watching the same video every week. It's new questions every week. I write a whole new set, so I have a whole new set of questions. That'll be the first hour. In the second hour, we'll open up the phone lines and everybody can talk in. Right now is the pre-show where I'm making sure I've got recordings going down here. Recording is going up here on my UBS server. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. We've got, of course, a recording on the YouTube side, so that's good. Cameras, I'm looking at my cameras, are good. I need to move my camera switcher down here. I think that's what I just decided to do, is there's this big gap. See that open gap right there in front of me? Perfect place for a 27-inch monitor with the video switching stuff on it. Then I can get rid of a big thing that's back there, just make this much smaller. Hey, chat room. How everybody? Was up indeed. Oh, you're taking your test Friday, Sean. Very good. This will be a good overview. Best of luck to you. We'll get you some good, solid foundational. Let's see how you're doing on this study group today. So that'll work. Hello, Mexico and Bolivia. Welcome. Oh, Security Plus on Friday. Well, that'll be a good one too. So you got 2 days to study on that one. That's a tough one. Hey, Columbus. There's the Florida folks. Hey, Jacksonville. Need to get over to Jacksonville. Haven't been there in a while. Get that going. Detroit. Welcome. The Security Plus is a tough one. So for some reason, networking fits better for me. I know a lot of people are like, networking's weird. And I guess they're right. But for networking, I think it clicks for me. It's just how it works. So there's Houston, Bama, Cleveland is here, Orlando, more Florida folks checking in. Hey, New York, Saudi Arabia, Gadsden County. Do you mean Florida? Do you mean Bluntstown? No, Bluntstown's not. Is that in Gadsden County? Or is Gadsden County Quincy? I now need to figure all of these things out. Hey, Big Apple, Tallahassee checking in. So there's at least 2 people on from Tallahassee. Hello, Louisville. Welcome. Is a hardware firewall worth it for home network? Don't we all kind of have hardware firewalls in our wireless routers? They're all kind of, or maybe the ones, the device given to you by an ISP these days, they're all firewalls. So you sort of have a hardware firewall on your home network. Hello, Amsterdam. Welcome. I was supposed to be in Amsterdam this week. No, last week. Earlier in the month. First week of the month. I was supposed to be there. Had to cancel because of the thing. Because of the stuff. Hey, Canada. Welcome. I got to let Mrs. Professor know. Mrs. Professor Messer know that Canada's checked in. How was Thanksgiving? Was it good? Did you have a good one? Hello, Orlando again. Another Orlando. Welcome. San Diego, Roanoke, Mesquite, Texas, Fresno. Welcome. I haven't been to Fresno there. Between Midway and Quincy. That is Gadsden County. That's right. It's Calhoun County is where Bluntstown is. See, I just needed a moment. Sometimes I need a moment. Hello, Manchester. Welcome. Mexico City's checking in. Kunal, India. There's Tamarack. Broward County checking in. Good to have you here. Fontainebleau in France. Welcome. Belize. Denver, Colorado. Not everybody's doing networking today. Und Dusseldorf. Welcome. Hello, Alexandria. I'm assuming Virginia. Network Plus is a good one. So I need to make sure I kind of got this ready to go too. I think I've got everything ready. I don't remember what the questions were for this. I don't know that not remembering what county a very small part of Florida happens to be in is exactly a senior moment, but I'll take it. I'll accept it. But I did remember it, so I'm not sure that counts. And I believe I remembered properly as well, which is really good too. Hello, Kissimmee. Everybody checking in from Central Florida today. Welcome. Hello, Wales and New Philadelphia, Ohio. That's not confusing to me at all. Hello, Frankfurt and Albany, Georgia. Welcome. I'm at WPLG Channel 10, Albany, Georgia. Hello, Maryland. Welcome. Chicago. Hey. There is plenty of Network Plus questions I've got ready to go. I just don't remember what they are, but that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go along. There's Bristol, UK, different than Bristol, Florida, which is that in Calhoun County? See how this works? People just don't know. I think it's across the river from Bluntstown. So I think it's in a different county because that's where you change time zones. See? You gotta remember these things. I need some AC. We need some air conditioning. So let's bring up our Nest. I need to change around on my Internet of Things. I built out a new network infrastructure at home so that my Internet of Things devices would be on their own network. I've got a router that has a guest network, and the guest network is perfect for putting the IoT devices on, because if somebody gets their hands on the IoT device, they can't get into my private network. So I got to work on that. I think that's going to be the best configuration, but I haven't moved over all of the IoT devices yet. I just thought of that as I was turning down the air conditioning from here. So it's something everyone should think about, of course, if you want to blend in the network and the security piece right now, is to have all your IoT, your Internet of Things devices on their own separate segmented network that is different than yours. Do I use a green screen? No, this is real stuff. That is the real background. I have to do this every time. I'm going to unhook so that we can do this once and for all. So this is real. These are real things. That is a real cricket ball. Oh, I need to dust. It's a mess back here. So there you go. So there you saw me in my professional shorts. I'm in Florida. What can I tell you? It's 80 degrees. So there you go. It's actually real stuff back there. Yeah, it's we take it. It's an interactive green screen that looks and seems as if it's absolutely real. Yeah, no shoes, shorts are on. The whole thing just got. That's not professional at all. But that's where we go. That's how this works here. I need to be comfortable. So that's why that's there. What else do we need to do? I think we're ready to go. We've got a couple minutes to go. 2 minutes exactly to go. Yeah, it seems like, because this is so dark, it seems like that must be dark behind me. So therefore that shot can't be real. So it has to be some type of setup. But no, actually the lights are up here. You can kind of see there's a little bit of a glow in this corner because there's a light right there. You can kind of see my hand being lit by the light that is right there. And it's bright and it's kind of overwhelming the camera that I've got back here just a little bit. So that's what that's about. The N10-007 exam is ending. We'll talk all about that in the first few minutes because we got a little bit of an update on that this week on timing for the next Network Plus. Yeah, I'm definitely in Florida. There's no question because I'm not wearing shoes. I got shorts on. I should have put on some fluffy slippers. I did not have any available for that. But I have to be comfortable. The lights actually do heat things up in here a bit for this. So that's kind of how it works. No, the N10-008, the next Network Plus will be released in September of 2021. So they pushed it way back, which means the current one is going to be retired first half of 2022. So you're thinking like March-ish 2022. You got plenty of time. You got like a year and a half to worry about all of that. No, I have fluffy slippers. I just wasn't wearing them. There's a difference. I'm sure I have some somewhere. There's got to be some around here. It does get a little cold in Florida every once in a while. So you have to be ready for that. I think we're just about ready to get this. What was the name of the guy that lived in the back? All I think is on the IT crowd, but that's a different thing. Hello, what's his name? The IT crowd. Let's 12 noon, folks. We should do a live study group. What do you think? I think it's a great idea. Let's go ahead. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2020 Professor Messer Network Plus study group. This is our N10-007 study group, coming to you live from our world headquarters here, really live, as you saw in the pre-show. If not, you can back up and see the behind the scenes of how all of this actually works. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go through an hour of Network Plus Q&A here in this first half of the study group. Then we are going to shift gears in the second hour, and I'll stop asking questions. I'll turn around so you can ask questions of me. So that's what we try to do here, is we mix it up a little bit so that I spend some time quizzing you on all new questions. For those of you, I saw a message this past week that said, oh, it's the same questions every week. Oh no, there's brand new questions. I write fresh. It takes about half a day to write up all of these questions every month for these. So trust me, they're all brand new every week. I try to make sure we don't repeat any, because nobody wants to see things repeated over and over again. If you'd like to play along, if you are watching this live, what you want to do is pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. That will present you with a message right away on your screen. There'll be a Q&A on your screen ready to go. You go to professormesser.com/QA. We'll talk about that question in just a moment. There's also an app that you could get, because everyone needs an app. The app is the Socrative student app. That's the one you want to look for. There's a Socrative teacher app. That's the one for me. You want to get the Socrative student app. That's the one for you. It will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. Make sure you get that room name correct. So that once you do all of those things, there will be a question waiting for you. This is the only question we do repeat, which is our very first question. It's a question from last month, though. So it's not like it's the same one every time. It's a little bit different. If you do all of those things that I just told you, you see a message waiting for you, a question waiting for you that says, which of the following would be the best way to prevent a rogue switch from having a lower bridge priority than an administratively configured switch? Would that be flood guard, spanning tree protocol, port security, root guard, or DHCP snooping? So pick your right answer from that list. Don't put your answer in the chat room. Don't put any hints in the chat room. We will come back to that question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. We aren't able to have an interactive study group if there's no one here to interact. So we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you watching the replays as well. Don't forget, over on YouTube, there's some interesting things to see. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Don't forget about our weekly Network Plus pop quiz question. You can find that at professormesser.com/QA. Or no, professormesser.com/Instagram/Twitter. Those are the two places. And of course, /YouTube is where you can see all the Network Plus videos. This is one where if you're ever trying to figure out where do we keep everything, it's all on YouTube, at least for the moment. If that ever changes, I'll tell you about it. Don't worry. We were talking earlier before we got started on the new, or the latest version of the Network Plus certification. If you are watching here in October of 2020, the version that you want to take is the N10-007. It was released on March the 1st of 2018. We did get we got some additional information this week from CompTIA that says that they are pushing out the N10-008 to be in the second half of 2021. That means that the N10-007 will probably retire somewhere, I'm thinking around March of 2022, but let's just say the first quarter of 2022. What this really means for you, if you're watching this anytime close to October of 2020, is you have plenty of time to study before you need to think about studying for a later version of the exam. So keep studying the N10-007. You're going to do just fine. It's a 90-minute exam. You can get a maximum of 90 questions, and they grade you on a scale from 100 to 900, and you need to score 720. Every question's worth a different number of points, so we don't know how many questions that is, but we know that you need to get a 720 to have that passing score. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions, just like the one we just had, and performance-based questions. I'll talk to you about performance-based questions in just a moment. Don't forget that all of my videos are available to watch for free online. But if you want a downloadable version that you can put on a mobile device, if you'd like MP3 files, you can listen to the audio. If you would like my course notes, my exam hacks ebook, and you would like priority access to Q&A for the study groups, you can find that at my Success Bundle. You can learn more about that at professormesser.com/netsuccess. I mentioned that this is a video version of this is available to watch on a replay on YouTube. There's also an audio version of this available for replay. You can find it at professormesser.com/podcast. Podcast links are there. The RSS links are on that page. So you can add it to your podcast listening program so that when I post it online, it is automatically downloaded onto your mobile device and just waiting for you to be able to play that. Over on YouTube, we also have the replays, but my marketing manager, Lori, has to go back and listen to this whole thing all over again. Hi, Lori, in the chat room, if everybody give a wave to Lori. She is listening to this and putting timestamps on the YouTube so that you can go back and look at the video descriptions and simply click on the time for the question or the answer or the after show question that you might be looking for. So this takes about a day to put that on there, but about 24 hours after we have a study group, Lori is able to complete that and give everything there so that you can easily find what you are looking for. Let's go back to that question that we had originally, which was, which of the following would be the best way to prevent a rogue switch from having a lower bridge priority than an administratively configured switch? Is that flood guard? Is it spanning tree protocol? Is it port security? Is it root guard? Is it DHCP snooping? How did we do? 53% of you say it's root guard. I thought root guard's what you put around the tree to protect the root. Isn't that what it is? Well, effectively, that is what it is, except on a network, the root is your spanning tree, root bridge. That is your root guard. This is one that whenever you're worried about spanning tree and making sure spanning tree is there to protect your network from loops and to be able to provide some redundancy, you don't want some other device putting itself on the network and calling itself the root bridge of the network. So one of the things that you can do with mini switches, Cisco calls this root guard, but other switch manufacturers have similar names for the same thing. It will prevent a device from becoming the spanning tree root of the network. It listens out for those bridge protocol data unit packets coming through. Really, it's more of a frame, though, isn't it? An STP frame comes through with the BPDU, and it's listening to make sure that nobody suddenly becomes the root of the network. That is the right answer. Root guard, that's the one we had last week. The first question of the study group is that rewind question from last week. All the other questions in the study group will be brand new. There are other options here. You're welcome to go back to last week, and you can go through each one of those and understand why the wrong answers were wrong as well. Very useful to have that there. You'll find links to the replays on my website, on the YouTube. There's a playlist also available on exam. One of the things you'll notice is that the first handful of questions on your exam will not be multiple choice. In fact, people sometimes don't realize that when that happens, is that it's not multiple choice. Whenever that happens, if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out, well, what happened with this? Why are we getting questions that seem to be fill in the blank or matching questions or drag and drop questions or any other types of questions as well? You'll find that those first handful of questions are performance-based questions. Performance-based questions are just simply questions of the same content that you've studied, but asked in a different way. So I have a performance-based question for you, brand new question. There's a new performance-based question every month. This next question, though, is a matching question. This question is about DNS record types. Online, you'll see that this is a fill-in-the-blank question. So the DNS record types, I have 4 DNS record types, and I have 6 descriptions. So as you're looking at this, you will notice that some of the descriptions will not be used for this. 2 of them, exactly, will not be used for this. So our 4 DNS record types are a quad A record type, a CNAME record type, an NS record type, and a text record type. Those are your 4 different record types. There's not 5, there's just 4. And then I have 6 different descriptions to match this to. Description A, find the host name of the email server. Description B, find the IP address of the Windows domain controller. Description C, assign a secondary name to a file server. Description D is find the name servers for a domain. Description E is find the IPv6 address of a database server. And description F is validate the digital signature of an email message. Those are your 6 different descriptions. It's a 1-to-1, so you're going to have 2 descriptions left over at the end. And if you want to go for bonus points, tell me what DNS record types fit the 2 descriptions at the end. Be really a fill-in-the-blank question. For those of you listening on the podcast, let me go through these one more time where everyone's putting in their answer online. And if you think they're already matched up, so just simply put in 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. You don't have to type everything out. It might save you some time. So our 4 DNS record types are a quad A, a CNAME, an NS, and a text. Those are your 4 different record types. The 6 different descriptions are A, find the host name of the email server. B is find the IP address of the Windows domain controller. C is assign a secondary name to a file server. D is find the name servers for a domain. E is find the IPv6 address of a database server. And F is validate the digital signature of an email message. Let's see how we do with keeping up with all of those different DNS record types. Do you remember what they were? Do you remember all those DNS record types? I'm going to see how you do. A lot of you are already getting the answers in. You're kind of putting in what you think the answers might be. No Googling. You're not allowed to Google. So stop with the Googling. Take a guess. Try to figure out, based on what you know of these, what they could possibly be. We'll talk more about DNS record types and where you can learn more about this in just a moment. But since you don't get Google during your exam, you should not use Google during this exam. So that should be something to think about as you're walking through all of those. I know that some of you are seeing that there's some freezing or issues with the online version of the video. It sounds like YouTube may be having a problem getting that to you. My stats here show that I have an excellent connection to YouTube. It's not just good, it's excellent. Excellent connection. So far, everything seems to be fine on this side. Hopefully it'll stay the same way on the YouTube side. Let's see how you did with this one as well. The next, we'll start with these 4. We have these 4 DNS record types: Quad A, CNAME, NS, and TXT or text. So our first match to a Quad A would be E, find the IPv6 address of a database server. This is one where the IPv6 is your real key, because an A record will provide you with an IPv4 address. The Quad A, I don't know why it's not 6 A's. I guess that'd be too much to type, wouldn't it? But 4 A's together designates an IPv6 address. So that's one that might help you as well. Answer 1 matches with E. Our second DNS record type is a CNAME, or canonical name. This is where you can assign a secondary name to a device so that you could refer to it by www. You could refer to it by FTP. You could refer to it by server 1. And you could use all 3 of those names as long as you have separate canonical name entries in your DNS designating those secondary names to be associated with some primary named address. That is a canonical name, or a CNAME. Third on our list, NS. That might be a little bit of a giveaway with NS. NS stands for name server. This is where you would find the name servers for a domain. This is where you can query a domain server to tell us where other name servers might be. We have to be able to do that so that we can find all of these name servers. DNS is a distributed type of architecture, so you have to have some way to jump around all of these different distributions, and NS helps us to do that. Fourth on our list, TXT, a text record in our DNS server. One common way to use text records in a DNS server is to put a public key, and that public key can be used by other devices, for instance, email servers, to qualify that a digital signature from our server matches or can be validated properly when it is received on the other side. So the TXT record matches to F, validate the digital signature of an email message. Those were the 4 answers. Quad A is find the IPv6 of a database server. C names assign a secondary name to a file server. NS is find the name servers for a domain. And a TXT record can be used to validate the digital signature of an email message. But that means that 2 were left over. A was left over, which is find the host name of the email server. And the other is B, find the IP address of the Windows domain controller. Now, what would be an appropriate DNS record type to find the host name of the email server? And if you've worked at all with DNS and email, you know that the MX records, the mail exchange records, are the bane of your existence. They are incredibly important. You don't want to mess with your MX record. And if you've ever had to move or migrate one email server to another email server, this is something you have to really know what you're doing, because you could be setting the records at the wrong time to point to the different IP addresses, and then you end up having the mail go to the wrong place. You don't want that to happen either. MX record would be a good one to use to find the host name of the email server. And our last on our list is find the IP address of the Windows domain controller. This is one that can be really useful if you are ever working on a network and you want to be able to, for instance, find a way to help understand how you can locate some of these other services on the network. It's the SRV, the service connection. Find the IP address of the Windows domain controller is under an SRV record on the DNS server. Great way to do it. If you're ever working through these and trying to figure out what the best options are, those would be the best options. Maybe that can help you as well if you're going through these and trying to figure them out. I think that might help you as you go through these and trying to figure out DNS records as well. These come from the N10-007 section 1.8. I have a video called DNS record types. And as you'll notice as we go through here on these explanation pages, there will be a QR code. That QR code will take you to that video. So if you're watching this on a different device, you can be able to figure out where all of those would go as well. Maybe that might help you as you go through the mix of these. Now let's shift gears a bit and go back to our multiple choice questions. So we've got more multiple choice questions to go through. Our next question on the list asks, a network administrator would like to protect all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would it be SMTPS? Would it be SSH? Would it be SFTP? Would it be SSL? Or would it be SNMP v3? These are your 5 options. A network administrator would like to protect all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would it be SMTPS, SSH, SFTP, SSL, or SNMP v3? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. That is the link that you can use to answer the questions. That's how you can respond to the question. professormesser.com/QA, and you just stay on that page. It will change dynamically, automatically, whenever you're just on that page. Just sit on that page and you never have to move. Makes it very, very easy. You don't have to move from one link to another as we go through different questions. So make sure you're familiar with all of those protocols on this list. By the way, real things. None of those are made up. SMTPS, SSH, SFTP, SSL, and SNMP-v3 are absolutely ones that you could use to answer this question. One of those does fit. In fact, I could probably choose, and you'll find this on the exam, I think I could choose 3 of these. 3 of these could answer the question. So if you'd like to be technical with it and you're thinking, I could use 3 different ones to be able to do, actually only fits 1 though, because I'm asking which of the following would be the best choice for this particular scenario. So make sure you're familiar with what we're doing on this device and how it works. This would be very, very useful for someone setting up a firewall. You need to know what protocols are going through. For somebody setting up the network management console, you need to know what you can expect traffic to go back and forth. Those are things you absolutely need to know. And all of these happen to be secure protocols. So protecting all the traffic kind of is already included with each of these answers. So that doesn't help us very much. We kind of have to focus in on the question and figure out which one fits the best for this. Let's see how you did with this one. A network administrator would like to protect all traffic sent between a management console and the core switches. Which of the following would be the best choice? We're a little torn on this one. 43% said SSH. 34% said SNMP v3. 14% said SSL. And then single digits, 5% for SMTPS and 4% for SFTP. Well, the real key here is we have a network management console. Network management consoles very commonly are used to present a view of the network. Usually it's a large display that has a map of the network, and you see a lot of icons for all the different devices. A network management console is usually querying those devices occasionally to see if they are up or down, to get performance statistics from those devices, to be able to, in some cases, make configuration changes to those devices, all from that graphical front end. That means we need to use a protocol that's able to query the device for uptime, that's able to query the device to gather statistics, analytics, and metrics. We need to have a protocol that's able to make configuration changes on that device. And the protocol that makes the most sense to be able to do that is SNMP version 3. That is the one that you would want to use. Now, why wouldn't it be some of these others? SSH is certainly used to be able to protect traffic, but it uses a terminal screen. It's not commonly used on a network management console. You might use it if you want to sit at your desk and make configuration changes to that switch, but a network management console has many more tasks that it needs to be able to provide. SFTP is simply file transfer, a secure file transfer protocol specifically. SFTP is not the one that you would use on a network management console to be able to manage those devices. It's only used for transferring information. SNMP v3, the simple network management protocol, and the v3 version provides that encryption that we need in this question to be able to make that happen. SNMP v3 is the one we were looking for. SSL is what we would commonly use to encrypt web pages. That's not what we're commonly using as a protocol between a network management server and a switch, however. And lastly, IPsec is on this list as well. We have, what's the other one on this list that we have? SMTPS was the other one not listed here, but SMTPS is the secure version of the simple mail transfer protocol used for email. So that's one where whenever you start looking through and trying to figure out what this would be, it would not be SSH. It would be specifically SNMP v3. Now, from that net management console, all you ever did was SSH into the device. All you ever used this management console was for a terminal screen. Well, I could probably see you using only SSH for that. But a network management console is one that's going to be really using SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol. It's in the name itself. So that is the one that would be the best choice in this case if you chose E, SNMP version 3. 34% of you got that one absolutely correct. Let's do another multiple choice question. The next one on our list asks, a network administrator is connecting a patch cable to a computer, but all lights on the Ethernet port remain dark. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Would that be excessive crosstalk, a VLAN mismatch, an open circuit, a duplex mismatch, or a bottleneck? A network administrator is connecting a patch cable to a computer, but all lights on the Ethernet port remain dark. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it excessive crosstalk, VLAN mismatch, open circuit, duplex mismatch, or a bottleneck? Those are your 5 options. If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA. You can lock in what you think the answer might be. Maybe you've run into this problem before and being able to make that happen. I think that's the one that might help you as well if you ever go through this, trying to figure out the details. This is one also that is one of the key troubleshooting things you need to know to be able to work this out. So if you're ever in a situation where you are trying to step through the troubleshooting tasks, CompTIA makes a big list of these. So make sure you go into the exam objectives and know what you do to troubleshoot lights on an Ethernet port remaining dark. They spell it out for you so that you're able to figure out those pieces too. So become familiar with those troubleshooting tasks, not just this one, but all of the troubleshooting tasks. They have a big section of them on the exam objectives. It just tells you everything you need to know. Those exam objectives are incredibly valuable. Let's see how you did with this one. A network administrator is connecting a patch cable to a computer, but all lights on the Ethernet port remain dark. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it excessive crosstalk, a VLAN mismatch, an open circuit, a duplex mismatch, or a bottleneck? 57% of us, we have a majority, say open circuit is what that is. 21% say it is a duplex mismatch. 13% say a VLAN mismatch. And now we're single digits. 6% said bottleneck, and 4% say excessive crosstalk. So if you're ever in a situation where you're just getting no lights on the Ethernet port at all, that means that you're getting no signal over those wires. There must be either a short or an open associated with this. This is one that can really help you know that we're not getting any type of copper from one side to the other. If you're ever in a situation like that, you may want to see, do we have a problem with our crimping? Do we have a problem with the wire map? Is there somebody that cut the line between point A and point B? Open circuit would just be a break. This happens sometimes. You get the wire in the wall, everything's working. Then they do some construction. Somebody's putting in something new into the wall, and they accidentally cut the wires that happen to be going up that connection. Or maybe it's just a small cut. Maybe it's a small break. Maybe it's something that's worn. And now we're getting intermittent connectivity. We're seeing the lights turn on and off and on and off. One of the best ways to troubleshoot this, of course, is with a wire map. Get some type of wire tester, cable tester. Put these the wire tester on one side. Put the sensor on the other side. You plug those in. It will tell you how much of this it's able to see from one side to the other. If you really want to go into much more detail, get a time domain reflectometer, a TDR, and that will give you even more information about the quality of the cable that happens to be in the wall itself. So that is the right answer. An open circuit is probably what's happening here. We're not getting any connectivity. The connection is not working at all. We've connected that patch cable. Nothing seems to be working. Why are we not getting a connection from end to end? That's the question that you need to answer. 57% of you answered that one. That is the right answer. Would not be excessive crosstalk. Only 5% thought that was the case as well. Excessive crosstalk would at least give us some type of signal light. We would have some connectivity, although the connectivity that we would have between those two will probably be filled with errored frames as the crosstalk was communicating back and forth over those wires. A VLAN mismatch would also at least turn our lights on because we would have a signal, we would have connectivity, but we would simply be put on the wrong virtual LAN. It's not something that's going to happen either. A duplex mismatch would also give us signal, but because we have the duplex either set as full or half, which would be different than what the other side was set to, that mismatch would probably cause errored frames to be traversing the network. And then a bottleneck would, of course, be there. We still have signal. The lights would turn on, but we'd have a very difficult time communicating over that particular connection. Only 5% chose bottleneck. 57% of you said an open circuit. That is the correct answer. If you chose C, open circuit, you got that one absolutely right. More questions. We need more. Let's do another one. Here is another multiple choice question. Next on our list asks, which of the following IP addresses would be assigned if the DHCP server was not available? Would it be 192.168.65.4? Would it be 255.255.255.0? Would it be 169.254.1.17? Would it be 172.16.225.254? Or would it be 10.1.27.11? We got a few choices to go through there. If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com, lock in your answer. Let's go through these one more time for those of you listening in with what those happen to be. The different options are, which of the following IP addresses would be assigned if the DHCP server was not available? Is it 192.168.65.4? Is it 255.255.255.0? Is it 169.254.1.17? Is it 172.16.225.254? Or is it 10.1.27.11? Plenty of choices on the list. If you think you know the answer, please no answering in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Should be able to figure that out there. Quite a few options available if you're ever working through IP issues and trying to figure out how do you figure out where we are based on some of these pieces. That is how you would make that happen. So that might help you as well as you're going through the list of these. Whenever I start trying to go through the list of things like this, and maybe there are some that I recognize, you may be able to throw some of them off the list. So that might help you as well. I think if I'm ever working through this and trying to figure out what is the best way to pick out the right one, maybe getting rid of some of those might help as well, and being able to work through it. Whenever I start going through this list, this might help you as well as you're going through this. No, I don't get slightly angry every time I hear the word layer 3 switch. Just as the same reason I don't get angry when people say that you cannot run gigabit Ethernet over category 5, because you absolutely can. I should probably do like a tag at the end and just put those on there just to make people crazy. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following IP addresses would be assigned if the DHCP server was not available? It's one of these that I try to get into your brain in my videos, and 76% of you have it stuck in there. 169.254.1.17. Now, these were a lot of different IP addresses. We had a mixture here of private IP addresses. We had a subnet mask thrown into this mix as well. But one of the things that you will often find is that if you have problems with with getting an IP address from a DHCP server, and your system is configured to automatically assign an IP address, then you'll see an IP address on your machine that is an automatic private IP address, an API-PA address. This is what we call a link local address, which means it only works on your local subnet. You're not able to use this address to communicate to the internet or even outside of your local subnet, but it does allow you to at least communicate to your local devices, which can be pretty useful. This is the thing that sometimes throws folks, is that the API-PA, if you look at the standard, it covers the entire range, 169.254.0.0/16. That means any IP address between 169.254.0.0 and 169.254.255.255 are legitimate. Now, the first and last 256 addresses, though, will not be assigned from the standard. Those are reserved addresses. So the only IP addresses that you'll see assigned on a machine are 169.254.1.0 through 169.254.254.255. Those are legitimate addresses that could be assigned to actual computers. So that is one that you should look for. Well, all you have to know, though, don't worry too much about the details of what is reserved and what isn't reserved. CompTIA doesn't care that you know that. All you do need to know is that if it starts with 169.254, that is one that has been assigned automatically, most likely because there is no DHCP server available. In the chat room, a very good question about this one is there a difference between an IPv4 link local address and an IPv6 link local address? The functionality is the same between the two, but the ability to get a link local address is not something that was included in the default IP configuration standards. So it had to be added on later as the API-PA addresses. With IPv6, it's just part of the standard. You are automatically given a link local address Whether you want it or not, it's part of your IPv6 configuration. So that's one thing that is very different between IPv4 and IPv6. We've already gone through what we forgot in IPv4, what we missed. So it was just added in to do that. API-PA is the right answer. You got to find the 169.254. Hey, it's answer C, 169.254.1.17. 76% of you got that right. The 192.168, the 172.16, and the 10.1 network, those are all private IP addresses. They are not addresses that would be assigned if the DHCP server was not available. And then the 255.255.255.0 is a subnet mask, not an IP address at all. It would not be assigned as an IP address if the DHCP server was not available. The only one on this list is answer C, 169.254.1.17. That is the right answer. Well done with this. Well, we've already talked today about wiring problems. We've talked about API-PA. We've talked about working on the network and with the DNS, all the different settings you need to know in a DNS configuration. There's so much you need to know on this Network Plus exam. And if you've gone through all my videos, 101 videos on my Network Plus course, over 12 hours of content. Of course, I recommend you watch every single one of these and you take copious amounts of notes. However, one of the problems that you run into is if you try to do that, you will very, very quickly run out of time to do all of these. And quite honestly, I've already created a book for you that's got all of it in there with all the pictures, all the graphs, all the charts that I created. It's my N10-007 Network Plus course notes. These course notes are provided in PDF format or physical book format, made from dead trees right there. It's you get to choose which one you'd like to be able to do this. The course notes themselves, you can purchase and download them immediately. They are broken out by the video. So if you wanted to find the one that had information on backup and recovery, we'll simply click that and it goes right to the backup and recovery. Look, there's all the charts, all the messages, all the text, everything from my video. It's in the course notes. How many pages in our course notes now for this? 66 pages in the set of course notes. That is quite a lot of content. So I've already done the heavy lifting for you. I've already gone through the process of making sure that all of my content is in these course notes. Great way to do that is to find this at my website, professormesser.com/NPCN. Another nice part about this is that every penny that you spend on this goes back to keeping this thing going here, this crazy experiment that has gotten out of the lab. So we appreciate that. You also have the choice to buy the printed version. It's a little bit more expensive for the printed version because this is one that does have a full color printed shipped version of this. So if you're ever looking for some of those, you'll find all of that available at my website, professormesser.com/NPCN. And if you get the physical version, you get the digital one for free. Very useful to have that there as well. I don't quite yet have practice exams available. That's something that's currently in the works. So you'll see someday, it won't be anytime soon, there'll be Network Plus practice exams on my website to be able to do that. Right now, the course notes is what I have available, along with the Success Bundle, which also includes other pieces in there as well. Let's have some more Q&A on our list. I've got more questions available. The next question on our list asks, which of the following would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? Which of the following would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? Is it PPPoE? Is it ATM? Is it DMVPN? Is it MPLS? Or is it frame relay? Which of the following would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? Is it PPPoE, ATM, DMVPN, MPLS, or frame relay? You've got 5 choices, all real things. I didn't make those up. Those are real. But which one would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? That's really the question. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. I think a lot of you know this one. I can watch the numbers increase on the other screen there, and they go up rapidly. So I know when that happens, there must be people that think they know what the answer is on that one. Which of the following would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA to be able to make that happen. Lock it in. And once you lock it in, remember, no answers in the chat room. I think we might have figured out that one at this point. We've gone through a number of questions, and I've only said it 5 or 6 other times to be able to make that happen. I'm sure the folks in the podcast are thinking, I've heard this before over and over for this, and to make that happen. Are the questions asked during this live session similar to ones in the actual exam? No, they are similar to things you need to learn to be able to take the actual exam. I don't try to make these questions specifically for the exam, although there are techniques in these questions that you will find in the actual exam. I try to make these questions ones that we could use to see if we've learned what we need to know for the actual exam. But you'll notice a lot of these questions ask which would be the best answer, which would be the most likely thing to do. That's what you would do. That's the real key. Let's see how you do with this one. Which of the following would best describe the protocol used on a DSL network? Is it PPPoE, ATM, DMVPN, MPLS, or frame relay? 49% say PPPoE, 22% say MPLS, 15% said ATM, 10% say frame relay, and 3% say DMVPN. A lot of options there to choose from. We didn't quite get a majority, but we came pretty close. I think 49%. We should kind of give you the 49% that said PPPoE as being at least close enough. And indeed, PPPoE, which is the old school point-to-point protocol that we have created a version called point-to-point protocol over Ethernet. That is one that can really help if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out, how do we make this work? In fact, it's the DSL network providers that said, well, we know how to do PPP. We've done the point-to-point protocol forever. It was originally, or very commonly used originally, on dial-up networks to be able to dial up and then have some type of authentication go back and forth. But of course, with DSL, there's no dial-up. DSL is just always on, but there needs to be some part when you first connect over the DSL network that authenticates the user from home so that it knows that you are an authorized user, that you could properly use that DSL network. So they converted or updated PPP to have PPP over Ethernet, because that is the protocol that DSL is using. PPP over Ethernet is what you'll find in almost all operating systems these days. You don't have to have special routers to do it. And it's so similar to the old school PPP that it just made sense to use that and integrate it into the DSL connectivity. You might also see PPP over Ethernet used in other corner cases, but I think probably the most prevalent use of it these days will be on your DSL networks. That is the right answer, PPP over Ethernet. And now we're up to 50%. We'll say that you made it. We'll say that we've got a majority. PPP over Ethernet was the right answer. We have other answers here. 22% of you said it's MPLS. The MPLS, a great network for wide area networks, but not used commonly on DSL. It might be used later on somewhere else in the DSL cloud. Once it gets off the DSL network, maybe in the core of your provider's network, it might have MPLS, but it's not used on DSL. So not something you would find. Normally, if you were a corporate network, you were setting up connectivity to other sites, MPLS would have been a good choice for you to use for that. And sort of an older version of connectivity between sites for those larger corporate networks would be something like frame relay. So MPLS and frame relay, not the best choices for a DSL network connection. ATM goes way back in the day. I'm not even sure why it's still on the Network Plus exam objectives, but there it is. The asynchronous transfer mode was a networking type that had great promise. There was quite a bit of money spent on creating ATM networks, but ultimately it just did not work out. Ethernet just started going so much faster, and it turns out the fastest tends to win in our industry. And lastly, DMVPN, commonly used to set up a VPN connectivity over the UDP and being able to send it to multiple sites and to mesh networks, many different connections, many different advantages to using DMVPN. But in this case, not what you would use over your DSL network. Your best choice is the PPP over Ethernet. That would be your best choice. Let's go two more of these. I think we can fit at least one more question in. Let's go to the next question that asks, a system administrator is configuring a VPN to operate over TCP 443. Which of the following would best describe this technology? Those are we got a number of choices available for you. Would it be an SSL VPN? Would it be an IPsec VPN? Would it be an out-of-band VPN? Would it be SSH tunneling? Or would it be a DTLS VPN? System administrators configuring a VPN to operate over TCP 443. Which of the following would best describe this technology? Is it an SSL VPN, an IPsec VPN, an out-of-band VPN, SSH tunneling, or a DTLS VPN? Lots of choices there to choose from. If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You're going to want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. That is what you want to be able to do. See if you happen to know what this one is. And if you don't know, take a guess. One of the best things you can do on your exam, if you're just not quite sure, is to simply put something there. With multiple choice questions, you at least have a 25% or a 20% chance of getting it right. So at least lock an answer in. One thing we do know about these exams from CompTIA is they don't penalize you for guessing. So if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out what should we use, how should we focus on this, they don't penalize you for guessing. Just take a stab at it. So hopefully this is one that you'll be able to step through as well. Maybe you know this technology. Maybe you've used this technology and being able to make it work. It means if you're getting close to the end of your exam and you're running out of time, just start clicking buttons. Just start filling it in. Don't submit that exam unless every question has an answer on it. Make sure you at least put all of the answers in there. It's going to be important on what you are doing for your exam. You might get one right. That's free points if you do happen to guess it. Be important to have that there. Let's see how you did with this one. This question asked, a system administrator is configuring a VPN to operate over TCP 443. Which of the following would best describe this technology? Is it an SSL VPN, an IPsec VPN, an out-of-band VPN? Is it SSH tunneling, or is it a DTLS VPN? How did we do? 62% say SSL VPN is what we would use in that case. 19% said we would use an IPsec VPN. 13% said we would use SSH tunneling, which is also very useful. A DTLS VPN and out-of-band VPN got 4 and 3% as the right answer. So not many people thought that was the right way to go with this. The real key on this one is that those port numbers, TCP 443, are the port numbers that you would use for TLS or SSL. And if you are communicating using an SSL VPN client, then you're probably communicating over that TCP 443. It's perfect because most firewalls are expecting you to communicate to web servers over TCP 443. If you're on professormesser.com right now, you're communicating to my website over SSL because I've turned it on and made sure everybody communicates over SSL, and you're communicating using that TCP port 443. So these days, not only do you have very small clients to be able to communicate over SSL VPNs, these days with HTML5, there may be no clients. It may just be in the browser allows you to communicate over a VPN connection. We've really done a lot with VPN connectivity. This is also a technology that can authenticate users. You don't have to have everyone with a separate digital signature. You can simply set everybody up so they log in with a username and password like they normally would use to make that happen. This can, as I mentioned, be run directly from an HTML5 browser these days, or just a very small VPN client to be able to make that happen. TCP 443 is where you would commonly see this SSL VPN used for this, being able to make this happen. So hopefully that's gotten you some ideas and familiarity with this technology. 62% of you said it must be SSL VPN. IPsec VPN does not use commonly TCP port 443. commonly uses UDP 500, among other things, to be able to communicate over IPsec. IPsec VPN, only 19% of you chose that one. SSH tunneling is going to use TCP port 22. That is what SSH, the protocol, uses, and you can tunnel traffic within the SSH protocol using those same port numbers. And DTLS and out-of-band VPN do not apply to using TCP 443, so would not be what we would choose in this particular case. Hopefully, really trying to understand more about these VPN technologies is going to help you when you start trying to connect up either sites where clients are connecting, usually SSL VPNs are used by client connections, or connecting site to site. When you're connecting firewall to firewall or your location to a third party, you're usually using an IPsec tunnel to be able to do that. So these different VPNs are used for different reasons at different times. It's very useful that you know when you would apply a different technology and how you would connect it. If you're watching these videos for ongoing CEU credit, continuing education unit credit, that CEU, there's different categories, but I can give you a 1-hour webinar category CEU just for watching this 1-hour study group. And you don't have to have me provide you with any content. You can simply tell CompTIA, you watch this and they'll give you credit, or I can send you an email that has been digitally signed by me that says, yes, you must have watched this if you follow these instructions. So you must follow these instructions to do this. The instructions are that you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. Click that Contact Us link. It brings up a form. Put in your name, put in your email address. That's important because I'm emailing these back to you. Put in the subject line that this is the October 2020 Network Plus Study Group. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of SSL VPN. SSL VPN is a super secret code word of the month. You can also put anything else you would like in the body of that message as well. I read through all of these. I'm not able to respond back to all of these because I get hundreds of these things in every week. And I go through them manually to make sure that it's correct before I send you back your digitally signed email. So it does take a little bit of a time to go through that. But I do read through all of them. So thank you for your comments and thanks for letting me know how your test went, the things you're doing with this, when you need to have this, all of your renewals in, all of those different things. Very, very useful. Very nice to be able to read through that as well. I feel like I'm at least able to get a feeling for some of the things you're doing on that side of the camera. So it's kind of nice to get that. This is one, the SSL VPN is one of those technologies you need to know for the exam. Comes directly from the N10-007 section 3.4. There's a video I have called Remote Access that steps through those different VPN types. That's what you want to go through to figure out as well. Let's do another question. We got time. So the next question on our list asks, which of the following would commonly be associated with WPA2? Would that be RC4, SHA-2, SSL, CCNP, or TKIP? Which of the following would commonly be associated with WPA2? Is it RC4, SHA-2, SSL, CCNP, or TKIP? Those are your 5 options. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock it in. I realize those who are listening on the replay or watching the replay, you can't really go to professormesser.com/QA. Just follow along. You'll be able to lock it in your own mind. Play along and see how you do with being able to make these happen. Whenever I go through these, I try to figure it out as well. So maybe you are familiar with stepping through these, and maybe you know about WPA. These days, we have to know about WPA3. That tends to be the more important one. Obviously, when the Network Plus came out, there was no WPA3. Now there has been WPA3. Now WPA3 is out there. Not much of a difference, though, between WPA2 and WPA3. Some minor changes, some important changes, but at least we didn't rewrite it from the ground up. So that's an important part. WPA2 is working great. So why rewrite it? Just make it a little better, a little stronger, a little more flexible, add some different functionality for being able to protect people's data. There's some great things in WPA3. But you'll learn probably WPA3. I would see it's probably going to be added in to to the next Network Plus, certainly. It's on the new Security Plus, so certainly they're going to add it to the next Network Plus and being able to make that happen. A lot of you have already locked this one in. I think a lot of you know this one. So let's see how you did. Which of the following would commonly be associated with WPA2? Would it be RC4, SHA-2, SSL, CCNP, or TKIP? And how did we do? Well, we're a little torn, actually. 41% say TKIP. 37% say CCNP. 13% say SHA-2. And then single digits, 6% for SSL and 3% for RC4. Well, this is one where you have to really read through the question, really see the very specific protocol that is being asked of you. This is the one you want to focus on and understand what these things happen to be. If you're someone who is trying to walk through all of these, it's best if you can throw out the ones you don't know. But WPA2 and the underlying protocol that is used in WPA2 for authentication and for encryption and being able to do message authentication is CCNP. The counter mode with cipher block chaining, message authentication code protocol. That is the one that's going to provide the encryption using AES. It's going to use that as a block cipher mode called CCNP. That's where the AES is. And then you have, of course, the ability with all of that together to be able to encrypt the data. That's where the AES is used. Authenticate the data so that you know what you received was what was sent. That is your message authentication code protocol. And, of course, the access control that gives you access to the network to authenticate yourself in the network. Part of that is built into the WPA2 protocol as well. So if you ever see CCNP, at least for this particular exam, you should automatically think the WPA2 or later. WPA2 is the latest one in this exam, though. WPA2 and CCNP certainly go together. The one that got the most number of answers, though, TKIP. 41% say TKIP is what would commonly be associated with WPA2. And TKIP, certainly a very popular protocol, was used in WPA, which was the precursor to WPA version 2. But TKIP was a protocol that allowed us the similar functionality, certainly being able to have the authentication of the message, the integrity protocol that is used in WPA. But it was a lesser integrity protocol than using CCNP. We had to have something that would work on these older access points that were previously running WEP, and TKIP and RC4 were good choices for that. But obviously, we needed to completely update that to have a much stronger and a much better set of protocols on WPA2, and CCNP would be the right one to use for that. RC4 was used in that WEP protocol. WEP is not one we want to use anywhere these days. It's kind of hard to even find an access point now that even gives you the option. SHA-2 is a hashing protocol not used in WPA2, at least not for the main parts of WPA2. SSL, not what we would use for WPA2. We'd use that for our web traffic primarily, or an SSL VPN. Not sure if you've heard of those, SSL VPN. That's one that would come up. So in this choice, you could probably get it down to CCNP and TKIP. You just have to remember that CCNP goes with WPA2, TKIP goes with WPA, no number 2 at the end. So just a 1. WPA 1, we didn't call it 1 because we didn't know we'd have more than one of those. It was just WPA and WPA 2 to have that there. The right answer is D, CCNP. 36% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's squeeze in one more question. I think we should. I think we owe it to ourselves to get one more Q&A. So here is the next one. Will there be a WPA3? There already is. How you like that? Next question on the list. A network administrator is concerned that a nearby office building may be interfering with their 802.11 AC network. Which of the following tools would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? Would it be a protocol analyzer? Would it be a spectrum analyzer? Would it be a loopback plug? Would it be an inductive probe? Or would it be a TDR? A A network administrator is concerned that a nearby office building may be interfering with their 802.11 AC network. Which of the following tools would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? Would it be a protocol analyzer, spectrum analyzer, loopback plug, inductive probe, or TDR? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what that one happens to be. All 5 of those tools should be in your toolkit. So those are all 5 real things that should be part of your networking toolkit. You should at least have access to these. Some are more expensive than others, but you should at least have these available to you so that you can manage and troubleshoot your network, but only one fits best for what we are trying to do here. Let's see if you happen to know what that is. A lot of you are locking in your answers quickly on this one too. So maybe we got a lot of folks working through whatever this one happens to be. This is one, if you're ever in a situation where you are troubleshooting some of these network configurations, this is one of those that does come in handy to have. So make sure you have these tools ready to go, especially if you're going off site. It's the worst problems when you don't really have total control of a building, especially they're nearby buildings, there's nearby offices. They could do whatever they like in those offices, but that could affect you. So it's useful to at least know what you're dealing with and have the right tools to be able to troubleshoot it. Let's see how you do with this one. A network administrator is concerned that a nearby office building may be interfering with their 802.11 AC network. Which of the following tools would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? Would it be a protocol analyzer, a spectrum analyzer, a loopback plug, an inductive probe, or a TDR? 83% of you say spectrum analyzer. That seems like a vast majority. That seems like a strong majority. 10%, barely making it into double digits, is protocol analyzer, and then 3% for TDR, 3% for inductive probe, and 1% for loopback plug. Barely made the list. Well, of course we would use a spectrum analyzer. That's how we would be able to see what type of wireless spectrum use there might be. Is somebody else interfering with the signal on this network? Is there another network nearby or another device nearby that is interfering with the wireless spectrum, the wireless frequencies themselves? How would you be able to know unless you had a spectrum analyzer? So spectrum analyzer is going to give you a complete view into being able to understand what's going on with the wireless network, the network you can't see, you can't even touch it. So how are you supposed to troubleshoot it? Well, you need a spectrum analyzer to be able to make that happen. That is the best choice. 83% of you said, yes, that's what you would use, is the spectrum analyzer. 10% of you said a protocol analyzer, which would be useful if the protocols themselves would give you information about how the network protocol, the network spectrum was being used, but it doesn't. A protocol analyzer simply shows you the network packets that are coming across the existing spectrum. Doesn't give you any insight into other things that may be causing problems with that communication. A TDR, time domain reflectometer, is used on wired network, so that's not going to help you on your wireless network. An inductive probe is used in combination with a toner. Put that toner on one side of a cable, and you use the inductive probe to find the other end of that cable. Again, that doesn't help you on wireless. And a loopback plug helps you troubleshoot physical interfaces on a device so that you can determine if a physical interface is working properly. Again, doesn't help you if there's a wireless network. The only device here that would really help you for this kind of problem would be a spectrum analyzer, and 83% of you answered that one absolutely right. That is the best answer. Those spectrum analyzers come in very, very handy. That's something you may want to make sure you have in your toolbox. This is also a topic that comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. As I mentioned, being able to have access to every single topic that could be asked of you on the exam is an important thing. You need to have this list before you start studying. You need to use this list as your checklist after you are done. So make sure you have a copy of this. You can have a link to the CompTIA website by visiting professormesser.com/objectives, and you'll be able to see all of the objectives for Network Plus by following the link over to the CompTIA website. That's an important one to have. We do one of these study groups every month. The next Network Plus study group is on November the 11th. Feel free to check your calendar or check my calendar at professormesser.com/calendar to add it to the list. You can, of course, find that there's the A Plus study groups on the 3rd and 5th of November. The Network Plus study group is on the 11th, and my Security Plus study group is on the 18th. For those of you that follow along with these study groups, you know that next week we have a Security Plus study group. Normally that's Security Plus study group, and originally it was scheduled for Wednesday of next week. That date has been changed to Tuesday of next week. So make sure that you check your calendar and check my calendar and make that change so that you're here on Tuesday instead of showing up on Wednesday. I had a bit of a scheduling conflict on my side, so I had to shift it a little bit. So we're going to do it on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Not a huge difference, but you do want to make sure you show up on the right day. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A, but that's okay. It's the hour of Q&A that I ask you the question. Now let's do Q&A where you ask me the question. Stick around for the after show. I'll open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. We'll answer questions about taking your exam online as people are asking. Don't forget about the links to the Success Bundle for Network Plus at professormesser.com/netsuccess. And don't forget about the free questions on professormesser.com/Instagram or professormesser.com/Twitter. There's also free questions on the Professor Messer website with our Take 10 questions. You'll find that on the links from Network Plus, and of course, all of our free videos on YouTube as well. Thanks for being here in this first hour. Stick around for the after show. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everyone. Let's see if I can get things set up on this side as well. Let's get this going. So if you can bear with me a moment, I'm going to get the phone lines up and running. I will take questions from the chat room. I'm watching this go through this list. Hello, everyone in the chat room. I'm watching things go by during the study group. Let me get my Skype up and running and let me make sure that I can call into my own show. That's how it all works. It's all in the cloud, people. You're calling into the cloud. I'm calling into the cloud. It's like magic. And then I don't have to have a big set of phone lines here either for any of these. Let's see if I can get this running. Bear with me as I bring up my Skype. There it is, and we call in with our Skypey. That's kind of loud. Let's turn that down a little bit.
Thank you for...
Well, you're welcome. I'm going to push some buttons here. Here we go. There's a lot of buttons. Push those buttons and the pound sign and...
enter your 6-digit PIN.
I'll do that, nice lady. We'll punch in our 6-digit PIN.
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Well, thanks, nice lady. That's nice of you to welcome me. That means that you are also welcome to call in as well. You can also put questions in the chat room. The number, if you would like to call in, is out on the screen right now. It's a toll-free number in the continental United States at 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you're outside of the continental U.S., you can still call me for free. You can use Skype because Skype does not require any Skype minutes. If you're calling a toll-free number, I will pay for the call. You put a +1 at the beginning on Skype, +1 855-785-7545. And you can call in there as well. Also take questions from the chat room. We can talk about some of these as well. Make sure all of these work through this. So one of the questions from the chat room was a question about taking an exam online, and that is a very good option these days. The exams have been available online for a number of months. They've got it down to a science at this point. You can take your Network Plus exam online, or you can go to a physical location where they already have the testing center set up and take your exam at a normal testing center. If you're taking it online, you have to take it in a room that is closed in, that nobody can walk into in the middle of the exam, that there's nothing that's going to be on your desk that you can use. You can't have any writing utensils nearby. There's tons of rules associated with this. They are all out on the CompTIA website. Make sure you are familiar with all of those rules. You can, of course, go through those. Make sure that your room is set up properly well before scheduling the exam so you know exactly what is going to happen with this one. That's another important one to know. And it's nice to have that flexibility. Some people don't live anywhere near a testing center. That's a great option to have that there. So you can, of course, take it online anytime you like, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As long as they have availability, they will book the exam for you, and you can take it at your leisure. Of course, it's there. The other questions in the chat room, are some of these questions, do you get multiple options there? Are there certain questions you might get partial credit? If you don't match everything perfectly, will you get 50% of it right? Can you get a 75% of the credit? CompTIA on their frequently asked questions on their website says maybe. That some questions, they might give you partial credit. Other questions, you won't get partial credit. You just don't know. So that's one of those challenges is CompTIA doesn't tell you. But they have said it's a possibility at least. So at least we have a little bit of that. If you are taking your tests online, there is a digital whiteboard that you can use for this. In fact, there's a sample digital whiteboard. Let me see if I can put the link for the digital whiteboard into the chat. I'm not sure even that I'm able to put those into the chat, but there is a whiteboard. You can go ahead and use it now to do some practicing, and you just type it in. It's just typing. It's not like it's too difficult to make that happen. I'll show you what this looks like in just a moment. Let's see if it allows me to put a link in. Yay, there we go. So in the chat room, there is the Pearson VUE website. For those listening in, it's home.pearsonvue.com/onview/whiteboard, and you can test it yourself. Click the links there. You can draw, but I think just clicking the text and typing it in is probably the best way to do that. Very, very easy. Will the questions on the Network Plus exam be from A through E or A through D? It will depend. I think most of them are A through D. I try to make it a little more difficult on my exams by giving you that extra option. But there are some questions on the exam that will have many, many answers that you have to choose from. Some have a lot of answers. You have to choose multiples of the answers. There's a lot that's there to be able to work through. So hopefully that can help you with some of those online testing pieces. Maybe help you as you go through some of this as well. Let's go to the phone lines to the 310 area code. Hello, caller. It's Hassan in LA. Hello, Hassan. Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much. How are you?
Oh, thanks for calling. So good. What can we do for you?
Okay, so I have been a student at Western Governors for a while, and I kind of stopped pursuing the Network Plus and Security Plus degrees. I'm doing a degree in information systems. But the question is that I recently decided to set up a home network, and we wanted to hardwire the whole place. And we got a Cat5 cable, Cat5e cable actually, and we went under the house, and me and my roommate, and we drilled some holes, got the cable to the computer. The internet speed that we're supposed to have is apparently it's supposed to be at 500 Mbps. And when we connect the shorter LAN cable, which is also a Cat5e cable, from the router directly to his system, we get that speed. But with this cable that we put under the house, we are not getting the speed that we want. It's back to 40, 45 Mbps. We did use a crimp tool, which was kind of cheap, I think, when we were crimping the wires.
Okay.
It didn't shave off the end of the cable, and we had to use like a blade manually to kind of like take it off. So I don't understand why we're not getting the same speed, because the cable, when we get the 500 Mbps, it's the cable that Spectrum, the internet service provider, they gave us. So if you can tell me, throw any ideas, could it be us not crimping the wire correctly? What could it be?
It could be a number of things. So let's do our troubleshooting process as if we were trying to troubleshoot a cable. This happens all the time, not just under our houses. It happens in corporate networks. It happens when you're running new wires and having all of these things happen. But there's places that you can go to, and you've done some of the troubleshooting already. You've tried a different cable. A different cable works. This new cable does not. So I think we've at least narrowed down the problem to this particular cable. Now we have to think about how this cable is connecting. We should, of course, look at the connection that we have on the one that works with the proper speeds. I would bet you're getting probably a gigabit connection on that particular link. You'll have to look to see what your operating system is telling you that you're connecting at with those speeds. Running a speed test is great, but knowing what the actual negotiated speed of the Ethernet link is going to give you also some important statistics, some important configuration metrics. What you may find is when you plug in the cable on the other side, the longer one that you've crimped out, it may not negotiate at a gigabit speed. It may negotiate at 100 megabits per second, which is kind of what it sounds like is happening in this particular case. Because if it's negotiating 10 times slower, then your throughput is going to be 10 times slower than what you would have had with the other connection. And that sounds a lot like what you are seeing is 10 times difference. Remember that the wires that you need to set up a 100 megabit connection are pins 1, 2, 3, and 6. It's 2 pair. Only 2 of them, 2 pair in that 4 pair cable have to be working properly. But for a gig connection, all 4 pair are used in that connection. And if they are not crimped down properly, if you're missing one of those wires is cut, you have it open in just one of those wires somewhere between point A and point B, then it's not going to negotiate the link at a gigabit speed. It's going to drop down to a 100 megabit speed. If it gives you anything, in this case, we know it gave us something. So I suspect our problem is with pins 4, 5, 7, and 8 on one side or the other. It may just be a crimping issue. The other tools that we could use to troubleshoot this, if we had a cable tester, which is a simple tester that allows us to check continuity from pin 1 to pin 1, pin 2 to pin 2, pin 3 to pin 3. If we were able to check that, we may be able to tell that perhaps one of those pins does not have continuity. It is not connected from point A to point B. That might at least tell us where our problem happens to be. If we had a TDR, that would be a fantastic. TDRs are relatively expensive. That's not something people tend to have at home. But a time domain reflectometer, even less expensive ones are a couple $100 to have those there. They would tell you, they would of course give you a wire map, and they would tell you how much of the signal is going from point A to point B, which is even more information that might help with the troubleshooting. In this case, I think it's probably due to our crimping. I think you need to check very carefully the way that these are crimped down. Make sure that none of those pins were flipped. Make sure that pins 7 and pins 5 weren't cross-connected, that everything is connected right on both sides of this. I suspect that that's probably where this issue is having a problem. I think if you focused on looking at the speed that this is negotiating at, if it's negotiating to 100 megabits per second, then it's something with the crimping or something with the wire between point A and point B, and that would probably be your best bet to start troubleshooting, Hassan.
Okay, so if you like a regular electrician, like if he goes into a house and he doesn't know the wiring, what you usually do is you get one solid and one stripe, and then the other solid and the other stripe. So could that be it? Like we're doing brown and stripe, and then green and stripe, and then yellow and stripe, yellow stripe. If that's how it's supposed to be, correct?
The important part, there is a standard for the colors that you would use on both sides. It would be 568A on both sides or 568B on both sides, which is a standard that designates which colors you put on pin 1, what color you put on pin 2, what color you put on pin 3, so that everybody who's punching this down, because usually there's a bunch of people doing this, so that you can tell everybody, hey, everybody, use 568B, so that we're all using the same colors on both sides of these things. Everybody says, okay, we'll connect it with 568B, thanks, and then everybody has the same colors. In reality, if you just made sure that the color on pin 1 on one side of this was the same as the color of pin 1 on the other side of this, you would effectively be doing the same thing, even if it didn't follow the standards, as long as you in your house had all of the colors the same way on all 8 of the pins. That should be working properly.
Okay. All right. I guess we're just not crimping it right then, because yeah, I never thought that, if there could be a signal loss with like pins like 5, 6, and 7 or something like that. I had no idea.
Check the negotiation speed. Windows or the operating system you're using will tell you what the speed it's running at. Make sure, of course, that it's not manually set to 100 megabit, that it really is set to auto negotiation. That's important. One click and it might be working. But I think you're on the right track with the crimping. That's what always gets me when I'm running a new line as well.
Okay, gotcha. Also, getting back to Network Plus, which is why I was watching your stream this morning, I did take a Security Plus, I think it was last year, and I didn't pass it, and I kind of gave everything up and just started focusing on my degree. But I'm getting back into Network Plus. The exam is still the same, correct? And what's going on with COVID and the testing centers?
Well, the N10-007 is the exam that has been out since, what was the date? I gave that date at the beginning, and I always get it wrong. So if we go back to my list of things, the N10-007 has been out since March the 1st of 2018. So this is, if you've got any materials that have been made since March the 1st of 2018, they are for the latest version, the N10-007. And as far as testing centers, it varies depending on where you are in the world. Here in Florida, we're open. It's normal. You can go anywhere you would like to go and do anything you would like to do. Pretty much everything is open, and it's just back to normal going places. We're still wearing masks, and we're still keeping our distance from people because we're not animals. But we've opened up everything, and you can go do pretty much whatever you would like to do these days. And that's not an enormous problem here. But there are parts of the country where everything is still locked down. There's parts of Canada where you're in the red zone. You cannot go out and do anything, and testing centers there would not be open. So I guess it really depends on where you are in the world and what the particular rules and regulations are for where you happen to live. But as I mentioned, if the testing centers, if that's not an option in your particular area, take your test online. It's the same test. It's from the same front end. They're just doing it on your computer. They're watching you through the camera. They're listening in through your microphone the entire time you're taking the exam. But you can, of course, take them online and earn your certification without leaving your house.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. All right, well, that was it. And really enjoyed the stream today. And good luck, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's always useful too. There are a number of people prior to doing all of this online. They obviously sped up their plans to do this because they've talked about doing online testing forever from CompTIA. But one of the things that was important for them was getting it up and running very quickly. So I think by April they were doing online testing. We've been doing it for months now, and being able to make that happen. So it's great that they've got that doing, and they've said that this is just something that you can do now going forward. They don't ever plan on getting rid of online testing. It is just a new feature of testing. So for those people that had to drive hours to get to a testing center, you don't have to drive hours anymore. Just take your test at home, and you're up and running, no problem. For those of you in the chat room, before we go back to the phone calls, you were asking when the N10-008 is there and when the current version is retired. The N10-008 will be released in September of 2021. So you've got about a year before you will see a new version of the Network Plus come around. And of course, I always say you don't want to take it in September. You probably want to take the current version until it is retired. So if that's the release date, you're probably going to see the N10-007, the existing version, retire probably around March of 2022. You got a huge ramp. So plenty of time to be able to figure out when the next exam is and what you want to be able to do with that. Let's go back to the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. The 360 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Dash. Calling from Seattle area.
We'll say Seattle. Sounds good to me, Dash. What can we do for you?
Yeah. Just wanted to say that, I took my test this past August, and I passed.
Nice.
And I just wanted to thank you. And I'd taken it a couple months before, and I had failed, and that was pretty discouraging because, it took me a long time, right, to get to that point. So I just wanted to encourage anybody else out there to, if you fail, just get back in the fight, study up, and go and pass it.
Well, you know what they say, you don't fail until you stop. So you didn't stop, so
Right.
that's not a failure. You managed to pass. Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for your materials. All the best.
Great. Glad to hear it. Thank you for calling, and thanks for letting us know. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Always love those calls. You can call anytime you would like and tell me about passing an exam. I love hearing those stories. Let's go back to the phones. 915 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. This is Jesus calling from El Paso, Texas.
Thanks for calling, Jesus.
I just wanted to say I took my Security Plus yesterday. I'm calling today on the network because I don't know if I'll be able to call when you have the Security Plus study group. But I passed my test, and it was really a lot of help from your practice exams and your videos. So
Fantastic.
Appreciate your.
That's great to hear. Is there,
Thank you
for
for
those,
calling.
there are people in the chat room and people who are watching this, and I think some of these things apply to Network Plus as well. Is there a certain thing, we obviously can't give away anything about the exam, but what tips would you give someone who's ready to now walk in and take their Security Plus exam?
So I guess if they're ready to, I would just review everything on the objectives, and then just for me it was doing the exams, your practice exams, and then reading why I got certain questions wrong, or reading why the answer was right. If I because when I would go through the test, your practice exam, I would make a note I'm sure about this one, so I marked that sure. I'm not sure, but I'm going to guess this one. So I marked that, and then I marked that I have no idea what the answer is, so I'm just guessing.
I like
so
that.
then I would go back and see where my train of thought was.
I like that a lot. That way you know that you were really, really sure on this one, and then you got it wrong. Well, wait a second. How could I be so
Right,
sure?
correct, yeah.
And then get it completely wrong. I'm glad that helped out then. Congratulations on your Security Plus exam. What's next on your list of things?
I have somewhat of a connection at the NASA site, so I'm going to see if I can to get a position there. I'm currently working with a school, so some of the Active Directory stuff and stuff like that was kind of easy to catch on. So, but it was a lot of the network questions, network side of it, security side of it, that I'm kind of worried about. So I think I'm going to study up on your Network Plus, and that's why actually I'm kind of listening in on your study group and gonna get right into it as soon as I can.
Good for you. I think that's a good next step. Getting any type of networking knowledge goes hand in hand with that Security Plus. So that's a good direction to go.
Yes. So I just want to say thank you, and good luck to everyone else.
Great to hear. Thanks for calling. Best of luck, and best of luck with those job plans as well. That would be exciting. When NASA here in Florida used to be one of my customers, it was always so interesting to go on the NASA facilities and find out the things they were doing with networks, because obviously that's a very different type of networking that they are doing over at NASA. Of course, there's always the normal things too. They also have to have Active Directory. They also have to use IP, but they take it a little bit further than what many people will do with networking. Perhaps that's just more obvious to be able to do that. Let's go back to the phone. Let's go to Canada. 403 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi. Good afternoon, Professor. This is Bumi calling from Canada.
Thanks for calling, Bumi. What can we do for you?
I should for a start say I appreciate all the good work you've been doing. Thanks for your effort. We appreciate this. This is so enormous. Okay, I have a question that is pretty much similar to that of the first caller. I have my home network configured, but I realized that on a different operating system, particularly on my Mac, I get the desired speed, which is about 1 gig up and down. But on my Windows, I get a bit lower. I get about, say, 500 or something. So What could be the cause of that? I've been wondering. I've been trying to figure out how to fix that.
It'd be a good question to try to figure out. This is on the exact same computer you're doing. Is it a dual boot configuration?
Can you say that again, please?
Is this a dual boot configuration? So you're in one operating system on the same physical computer. You're reboot into a different operating system for Windows. Are you booting back and forth, or is this two different systems?
No, it's two different systems.
Oh, okay. So it's possible on these two systems that there could be some difference in the adapter card or the Ethernet connection that is being used and the way that it is integrating into the bus of the computer. Those are the things I first think about. There was a time when, and there still is actually on a lot of laptops, where if you want to connect to a wired network, there's no Ethernet jack on most laptops these days. You have to have some type of adapter. Now, with the advent of the higher speed USB, it's not a big deal. You plug in a USB 3, you plug in your Ethernet connection, and you've got gig speeds, no problem. But back when we started doing this, there were the older USB 1 connections, and you would plug in a gig connection, and you weren't getting anywhere close to that throughput because the USB connection couldn't support that. Sometimes you'll find that with certain types of Ethernet cards. Some Ethernet adapters are faster, have more onboard processing than other Ethernet adapters. That's also a concern. Or it may just be that the network configuration of the operating system that you're using, in this case Windows, may have a configuration set that is slowing down the overall performance when you do something like a traffic test, a speed test, to be able to do that. And of course, you want to be sure you're using the same speed test every time. You want to be sure you're using the same cabling every time. The problem is that it could be so many different pieces in that mix. So I guess one of the best places to start is with the overall architecture. Make sure that you're plugging directly into a local Ethernet adapter, that it is one that is on the PCI bus, that it is at least one that is rated to be a relatively high-speed adapter using the latest drivers for that adapter, and that it's configured for the proper speed and duplex as well. Sometimes you'll start a new operating system and it's hard-coded for half duplex, and the other side is coded for full duplex, and you'll get horrible throughputs between those two because of a duplex mismatch. So there's those fundamental things to check on. If that is not a problem and everything matches to that point, then you're dealing with a configuration in the operating system somewhere. There are a number of websites, I think, that have some very good steps on how to optimize Windows, but you want to be really careful with this because a lot of the things that I've seen about optimizing Windows have been things that are changing registry entries that could have a detrimental effect on this. So making changes to the registry without knowing what you are doing can sometimes be very bad. If you ever get to that point where you're making registry changes, make sure that you back up that section of the registry first, or at least document what you're doing so that you can go back in later and make those changes back again, especially if it happens to go slower than what you wanted. So you've got a number of places to at least check on this, a number of things that you could update, a number of things that you might be able to change and improve on performance. Maybe one of those is going to be the fix for getting that running a little bit faster, Bowie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Yeah, I plan to write my exam, the CompTIA Network Plus, first week in November. But I think this downloadable PDF would be of good use to me. So I just want to ask, is it after payment that I get the downloadable version of the PDF?
Yeah, the PDF's available immediately after purchasing on my website. You get an email, and it even gives you a link after you pay for it. It takes you to a page that says, thank you for your payment. Click here to go to the download page. You can download it in just a second after paying for it. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
I appreciate the call.
That'll be all for today.
Best of luck.
Welcome.
That's always exciting when you're planning to take that exam and get things going. Yes, and on my website, you can pay with PayPal, you can pay with a credit card, or you can use cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Either one of those will work fine to purchase that. I want to add some more cryptocurrencies. It's not always the easiest thing to integrate with a a back-end system like that, but the one that's there I think works pretty well if you're using one of those cryptocurrency types. Let's go back to the phone lines. No, we don't have any phone lines. It's all open. It's going to go back to that, but we're in good shape there as well. Yeah, you'll notice some folks in the chat room are talking about practice exams. I don't currently have a practice exam for Network Plus yet. I've got things ready to go. Obviously, there's no need to make one for the N10-007 at this point. By the way, it takes months to write these practice exam books. So if I started on a practice exam book now, I would be finished by the time that it would not be worth very much. It would not be useful. So I missed the window there. But for the N10-008, my plan is to have a practice exam book available so that you can do that. I think it's one of the folks that called earlier was talking about that, how in my books, on practice exams, I give you an explanation of why the right answer is right. But for me, I learn more when I get a question wrong. So I want to know, if I get it wrong, why did I get this wrong? And so for every single wrong answer in my practice exam books, I write down why the answer was wrong, so that if you got it wrong too, you would know why. You say, oh, okay, that I think is a learning process. I always say that you never learn how to fix a network until it breaks. And then when the network breaks, suddenly you're learning a lot about troubleshooting. Suddenly you're now in the switch, you're in the router, you're looking at configurations, you're capturing frames, you're trying to determine what's happening between point A and point B. It's only when it's broken that you actually learn something. That's not entirely true, but in my mind, that's how I think about it. But that's when I really learn, is when you do that, to be able to make that happen. Some folks asking questions in the chat room. It's kind of inside baseball, but the old background I had on the older videos with the bookshelf, was that in your studio or was that in your home? Well, my studio is in my home. This is a different studio. So the first set of videos, maybe I can find an old school video. I was looking at these the other day just so we can all laugh about it, because we've been doing this now. We've been making videos for 14 years, almost 14 years. So I pulled up some of the really old videos, which are still out on the YouTube. You can still go out there and pull them up and have a look at them. That's where I was going to go to find this. I'll go to my YouTube studio. We'll search for, what was the first Network Plus I did? The N10-004. That would be a good one to start with. So I'll search in my list of videos. This is going to be embarrassing. For the N10-004, let's pull up a video on Let's do user authentication, and let's have a look. Oh, there we go with the old music for this, the video piece of it. So let's have a look.
Now that means that on the other side, originally, when I set up this password,
why couldn't I
it was
bring the
also
mic
hashed,
closer?
and the hash
Looks like
is stored somewhere on the server.
Looks like I'm bending over to get that. And I never went full screen with this. I guess we could zoom up on it. Yeah, that's the old studio with the old fireplace and the old books that are back there. Yeah, a little bit different now, and the little bit of a different view for that one. Wow, so young, no wrinkles, all clean cut, all shaved. Had headphones on, big blocky headphones for that. But it's effectively the same configuration we have now. There's not much that has changed since then. I want to say the lights are the same. I think I'm using exactly the same lights on both the front and the back. I think I'm effectively using the same types of computers in front of me, although they're the newer versions, of course. The video switching is obviously much better. That is now 4K. I'm using exactly the same mixer, and I'm using exactly the same microphone I was using in that other video too. So that's one that is there. Will I be using a green screen in the future? Why would I do that? Using a green screen is actually much more complicated than just having a real set back here. The real set, I can deal with bad lighting. I don't have to light it perfectly. It's a little bit better to have an actual real setup. With green screen, it has to be lit exactly evenly, very uniformly, which means you have to have the green screen. It would have to be back about as far as that is, which is about 5 or 6 feet back there. So the green screen would have to be back there. I would have to have more lights so that I could have it lit better, and then it wouldn't look as good. Ultimately, it doesn't look that great when you have the green screen. You don't have good, it just doesn't have the same piece to it. Now, I realize this kind of looks green screeny back here. It's a little bit off focus. That's by design to have this. It's the same thing. Voice has more bass, more imposing. It's not that the microphone quality has gone up, because it's exactly the same mic, it's exactly the same mixer, and it's exactly the same post that I have here. But what did I change with this? I might have just changed some of the levels. There's not much different in all of this to have this. Let's listen again down the line. If you're ever talking with somebody on the phone who says you need to change your password, a little bit more echo, just a tad bit more echo in the room, not echo in the recording chain, but echo in the room. Well, you can ask them, well, what was my password? I don't know. And they don't know because all they really have is the plus. I was just a child then. My voice hadn't changed. So maybe that's what it is as well. Maybe that's what it happened to be between all of those. That's probably what it is. Who else helps me prepare the video/studio besides Lori? Lori does mostly the post-production. So posting things online. She posts the daily pop quiz questions. She does the Q&A for this. She does a ton of back office type things that you don't see for this, but all of the video production stuff, Lori is not in the same city as I am. She's somewhere else. So all of this that I do in the studio is just me. This is all just me doing production. I know we don't have anybody else who works here. It's just me and Lori. So there is a lot that we're able to do just by sitting here at this desk. All of this is in front of me so that I can easily touch things and hit them. I got video recording systems here. I've got presentation here, camera. That's all you need. Lights, presentation, camera, record it. You're done. That's it. I manage the chat. I'm the one, all these people, they're getting deleted from the chat. I'm deleting them from the chat. So that's who does the chat, is me. All of this is all happening at the same time while I'm clicking things to make that happen. So it's a little weird. I get it, to have that. But who knows? Maybe in the future we'll go all green screen. It does look dark in this, but the lights aren't pointing here at me. This is the back of me. I don't like the back of me because you don't see the back of me. I like the front of me. And if you could see on my hand, it's kind of hard to see, but that's light coming from the lights that are here. So the front of me, if you could see me, is very well lit. The back of me is very well lit back here, but I don't like the back of this right there for this. So that's why that works that way. Back to phone calls. Let's go to 860. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name's Charlie. I'm calling from South Carolina.
Hey, Charlie. What can we do for you?
So I'm a full-time student, and I'm studying for my Net Plus and Security Plus, and I'm taking them in the beginning of December. So I essentially have now until the beginning of December to study and take both exams. Do you have any tips?
Well, first, why are you taking both of those very big exams at the same time?
Okay, so I have to move to Florida. In my school, since I've been there a while, they're offering to pay for my exam vouchers. So I need to take the exams before I move in December.
Well, that sounds good to me. I love it when somebody else pays for my exam. So I get that. Okay, that makes sense that you would focus on those pieces. The things that I would probably have you do then is you're going to have to cram a lot of information into your brain for both. This is did you say Network Plus and Security Plus?
Yeah, and Security Plus is a completely new topic to me.
Wow, this is going to be a lot of information all at once, but it's sort of the same process for both of these. You just cut it up into chunks and take it one chunk at a time. And I think for you, the exam objectives will be key for this. That should be the guideline you go with. Go to your exam objectives. You can break out each section into individual pieces. You can really focus on just the exam objectives. That's probably the thing that you'll run into the most, is that not all study materials stick to the objectives. And I get it. Some instructors would like you to have a broader understanding of some of these topics. They would like you to have a bigger scope of what some of these topics might envelop, but you don't have time for that. You need to get a very specific, very focused set of objectives in your brain so that you're able to do as well as you can on these exams. Both of these are pretty big exams, and there's not a lot of overlap, although if you look at the objectives, 11% of the Network Plus objectives appear on the Security Plus objectives as well. So there's, it's not a huge overlap, but there's a little bit less that you'll have to study for Security Plus if you've already studied for Network Plus. So that might help at least a little bit. Those are the things that I would have you focus on, is just use those exam objectives, take them a chunk at a time, try to go as fast as you can. You don't have a lot of time, so you're just going to have to churn through this content as fast as you possibly can. And I think the thing that might make the biggest difference for you is just get your hands on as much Q&A as possible. Go through the Q&A, use that to validate what you've already gone through. You're not going to have a lot of time to kind of look at these topics and have them sink in. You're just going to have to know the very high points. Do as much Q&A so you can figure out how do they ask questions, what type of questions, get some questions wrong so you can learn more about the things you got wrong, and then maybe at that point be ready to take the exams. It's a lot in a short period of time, but if you're doing nothing else, if you don't have other responsibilities or other jobs or things taking those hours away from time, use all of the time you possibly have. You're going to need as much as you can to get both of those into your brain and be able to pass both of those by that time frame.
Yeah, I just go to school full time. So
perfect.
Other than doing homework, I'm a networking student, so it kind of applies. But
good.
That's weird. My professor said that 2/3 of the content is going to overlap. So you're saying it's only 11.
One of the things I do is whenever an exam comes out, I write down, I have a spreadsheets with every single topic, and I cross-reference the old version to the new version. So I know exactly how many topics are the same and different across both of them. And I do the same in the case of Network Plus and Security Plus. This comes up all the time, which is what are the differences between one and the other. So I have a spreadsheet on the 501. I'm going to pull this up on my screen so folks can kind of see the craziness I go through. So here's the set of objectives I have, and I've already gone through on a separate form and cross-referenced these together. So I listed out all of the topics that were in the SY0501 Security Plus exam. And then I cross-referenced and said how many of the N10-007 topics correlate back to that. So when I was able to go through all of that, so it's not 11%, it's 13.4%. So, hey, there's a little more. So of the 789 individual topics on the 501, 106 of those are matched on the Network Plus exam. There's a lot of zeros here.
I see.
So it's definitely not 2/3, not even close. It may seem that way when you're going through it. Like I've heard of this before. Oh, we're talking about routers again. We're talking about firewalls again. You do, but it's only for this tiny little section at the beginning. There's certain sections of the exam, like section 5.1 on cryptography, of the 127 topics on the Security Plus exam, 8 of them are covered on Network Plus. So there's an example of where a huge domain has no representation whatsoever on the Network Plus exam. So no, it would be nice if it was 2/3, but then why would you even have a separate certification if it's 2/3 overlap? That's
true. Okay. And my last question is, I purchased both your course notes. Is there anything else I should be using that you recommend to study? I also have the cram exam Pearson VUE software
Great.
for the Net Plus practice exam.
Those are good. Those are good. On my website, I have a summary for each exam. If you go to the pull-down menus on my website for things like Network Plus, we'll do Network Plus. There's a Network Plus study recommendations link on the menu. And if you go to that link, I list out the 4 categories of things that I think are really important. I think you should watch some videos. I recommend mine, but you don't have to watch mine. Just watch a video series that you like that works for you. You need a good book, and I list 4 books here. The Exam Cram for Network Plus is one of those that I have. There's other books here, and you really should read through the books to see which ones sounds good to you. The different books work better for different people. So find the book that fits you best. The third thing I have is plenty of hands-on. It sounds like you have some hands-on labs from Pearson VUE. That's good. I think the Pearson VUE labs may actually be the practice labs. So the same labs I recommend, probably the ones you're already using. And then lots of Q&A. We just talked about that, how the Q&A can be very, very vital, especially when you're short of time. Get as much question and answer. And there's other Q&A books that you can purchase that are not just things on my site. Go get some of those. The more questions and answers you get, the better.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate your time and your time answering these questions.
Thanks, Charlie. Good luck.
Thanks, man.
That is a challenge, but if they're paying for it, why wouldn't you do this? Why would you not take advantage of somebody purchasing the exam for you and learn as much as you can in the meantime? Even if you're going to pass both of them, Charlie, but let's say another person, a lesser person, may not be able to pass both of them in that short period of time. But look at everything you would have learned along the way. And as Dash mentioned earlier, it's not a failure until you stop. So as long as you just keep trying and just keep working towards the cert, when you pass the certification, there's no more failure. You actually did it. You actually got it. That's the important part. Chat room's asking, how do you know which book works best for you? My recommendation would be to go to the website, find one of these books that works for you, click on it. It'll take you over to Amazon. And in Amazon, they have the look inside option, and you can read the book, at least the first part of the book. So go to a chapter. We'll go through the chapter, the table of contents. I'm just going to keep clicking here. I don't know how many pages. And let's go through a section of the book, not the introduction. I want real content. So we'll keep clicking Introduction to Network Technologies and just start reading through it. See if it's one that fits your style. And you'll get a feel for, okay, I can read through this. I like the terms. I like the way that they're mentioning this. Some books are a little more casual than others in the way that the voice is. Some are more formal. And that formal or casual voice might work better or worse for you. So that's what you'd like to do, is kind of go through and get a feel for that. Once you read through that one, then close that out. Go to the next book. Let's go look at the one from, who makes this one? This is a cert guide from, who's the publisher? Is this Pearson? Maybe CompTIA? We'll see who it is. And we'll look inside and do the same thing. Just go through this book, through all of the different ones. Let's go to the beginning. I just could have clicked the book section. Well, it's the same thing, isn't it? And go down and start reading through section 1. So here's section 1, Network Fundamentals. Effectively the same thing as the other book, but now we're getting a different style. In fact, this one's a little more casual, has different views on this. There we go. The pictures are different. There's color. Maybe that works better for you. They're stepping through it in a different way. So maybe this one works better for you. Maybe this is the book you should get. But you wouldn't know it unless you read through each one of these. So when I say find the book that works for you, that's what I mean, is go through each one of those, use that look inside feature, and see which one does work better for you. I think that's a great way to do it. Let's see how we do this. Someone in the chat room, why did I update the way I sign up / register for the live shows? I haven't changed anything. It's exactly the same. I had a hard time getting into Last Network Plus because I guess I missed the deadline to register to view. Once you register for the notification list, you're on it. You don't have to register every month. So I just send it to you every month, and you'll get a notification when the next one starts. And you'll just keep getting those until you click the link at the bottom to unsubscribe from the notification list. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll also get a tweet. If you follow me on Facebook, do I send out a Facebook link? I do. So you get a Facebook link. Those you don't always see. Twitter, you do. So there's some ways that you online will get notification that we're going live. Or you can just have in your calendar, we just go live at the start time, and you can always visit professormesser.com/live, and there's always a link at the top of the website that you can click on to see our live stream. If you forget that it's professormesser.com/live, there's a link right at the top, and it'll be there until I think I started it at noon, and it's there for 30 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. It stays at the top of the site. So that's some good choices to find it and have it there. I also have a Google Calendar link on professormesser.com/calendar, and you can add the Google Calendar links to your calendar so that it pops up and you'll know exactly when it is, because I move around and make sure that the Google Calendar links are always updated as well. So there's a few ways to do it, but I really haven't changed it. If you ran into a problem with the sign up/registration, tell me. Go to the top or bottom of the website, go to contact us, send me a note and say, this is not working the way I would expect it to work. And I'll do that. The links for signing up to register in that notification list are links on a third-party site that are embedded on my site. Some browsers don't like that. Some security tools don't like that. It's completely legitimate. I intentionally put links to Aweber on my site because Aweber handles the email registrations. That way I don't get involved in the email. You don't want me getting involved in email registrations. So that makes it a little bit easier in my mind. But it requires that I put that extra code on there to make that work. So I apologize if you ran into a problem, but I will fix it if it is an issue. Another one of those things I do, manage my own website. So there's nobody else here to do it but me. So there's a lot of things that we do behind the scenes you don't see. There's a lot of changes we make to the website behind the scenes that we're working on right now, but it's just one of those things that goes on. Another question from the website. You started a year ago on the training for this course. Is that long? Not if you're me. It takes me about a year to go through a certification course. I got other stuff going on. There's a lot happening to be able to make all of this work. So I have to work a lot during the day. If I want to do a certification, I have to do it at night. And that means that I get maybe an hour, maybe two. And that means that, of course, other things happen also in my world that might not get that hour or two a night. So it takes me months to finally get through all the content I need for certification. Some people they start on this and they're done in a couple of weeks and they take their exam. But they've also got some knowledge in the industry. They've been working in a job doing networking. They already have the basics of it. Some people like me and you, it takes about a year. I don't think that's long. I think the average is probably 3 months if I had to take a guess, but not all of us are average. Some of us just need extra time, which is perfectly fine. As long as you're able to step through all of the content and get all the way through it and learn all of it and take your exam. Doesn't matter how long it took you to study. The only thing that matters is were you able to pass the certification exam. So that's, to me, I don't care. If it took you 3 years to learn everything, as long as you got your certification exam, you are good to go. Perfectly reasonable to me. Another question from the chat room. Is it worth getting your Network Plus and your Cisco Certified Network Administrator, CCNA, or should you only get one networking certificate? Well, I guess it kind of depends on what you want to do. The whole point of us getting certified, there's probably a means to that end. That certification is the means to get to the end of this. So what is the end? What are you working towards? What is the reason that you're getting the certification? So that's the first question you have to answer. We usually don't get certifications just because we want to have a certification. There's usually a reason behind that. So is it because we want to get a job being a network administrator? We want to learn routing and switching. We want to manage an enterprise network. Or do we just need that entry-level job onto a help desk? So there's different certifications to meet those different needs. A Network Plus gives you the foundation you might need to be able to learn networking topics that can help you if you get into a network operations center or a help desk type position. But if your goal is to maybe work towards a longer term network administrator role, maybe the CCNA is a better choice. And there are people that prefer starting with Network Plus, kind of getting the foundational knowledge, understanding the terms, becoming familiar with subnetting, understanding more about what a switch does, what a router does, what all of these different requirements are. Then once they get that foundational knowledge, move to take the CCNA. Because the CCNA doesn't spend a lot of time on the foundation. They spend a lot of time configuring switches, understanding routing protocols, understanding the details about how spanning tree works, understanding how to recover from a routing configuration, how to automatically set the NTP configuration so all the clocks are the same across all your routers and switches, how to set up and understand APIs and how they would interact with your routers and switches. You know, those are things that are the important part of the CCNA. That's well outside the scope of the Network Plus, but it certainly builds on the Network Plus. So there's a lot of people that start with Network Plus and then they go to take their CCNA. There's some people that say, I'm gonna take and work towards a network administrator job. I know that I'm working towards that. I'm really interested in understanding more about how switches work and configuring routers. So I'm going to skip the Network Plus and go straight to the CCNA. That's a perfectly valid strategy in my mind. So why not do that? If that's your goal and that's the path that you would like to take, that's a perfectly reasonable one in my mind. I guess it just depends on what the end is that you're working towards. Find the right fit. And you want to be careful about that. I've had people talk to me about they went and took their CCNA, they got some other higher level certifications, but they don't even have a job in IT yet. And then when they showed up to take the job or to be in a job interview, people are looking at the content of the resume and going, well, you've got certifications here that are for somebody that's been working for a while, but you don't have an IT job yet. And they get concerned that maybe you're overqualified for an entry-level position. You do have to be very careful about that. You do have to make sure that you are a good fit for the job that you are applying for. So you don't want to have somebody thinking, oh, if I hire this person, they already know about configuring switches and routers. Are they going to be bored sitting on the help desk? This might not be the best fit for them. You know, but that may be the job you're qualified for. You just have these other certifications. So it's a balancing act. You have to be very careful about that. Make sure you get the right certifications, or at least tell people about the right certifications for the jobs that you're applying for. And maybe that's a question you ask the person who's hiring. How do you feel about somebody having these higher level certs in these roles? You know, don't tell them you have a CCNA. You can say, I'd love to work towards my CCNA here, or CCNA is something I would like to see a lot of people have, or maybe work towards a networking job. Is that something you would recommend people already having when they come to work here? You know, you can start working through those. And you could just, as people in the chat room are mentioning, and that's kind of what I'm going to, just don't tell them. Leave it off your resume. One of the things I always tell people, and I'm actually shooting a video tomorrow on the reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. So look for that later in the week. But the thing that I mentioned in that first video that I'm doing is you need to customize your resume for the job you're applying for. Now, how do you do that? Well, I'm going to show how to do that. I'm going to take an actual job description and customize my resume for it in the video. And it's not hard. It takes minutes. Sending out cookie cutter resumes to everybody is a low effort and quite honestly going to be a low response type process. You need to customize the resumes you submit. So every resume you submit needs to be a little different. Why you do that and how you do that, I will explain to you in this new video. So I don't have time to do that. I'm literally shooting this video tomorrow. I've just finished all of the content. It's taken me forever. I think I've talked about it for months. So I've just finished. It is ready to go. I shoot it tomorrow and then hopefully be able to edit tomorrow. Depends on what's going on in my world. Certainly I can get this thing edited by Friday and get it out. So if you are not already subscribed, now I get to combine it with this. Make sure you subscribe, smash that button, as the kids say, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll click the bell so that you're notified when that new video is uploaded. So I'm hoping that I can shoot it in the morning, edit, and get it posted by the afternoon. But these things don't always work out so well for me. But hopefully by the end of the day on Friday, you will see it. So by the weekend, and it's called the 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And I've compiled this I've probably gone through thousands of resumes when I worked as an IT manager. I've also gathered other pieces of information from other HR recruiters, and I've kind of put it into one video. In fact, I put it into one video, and then I realized there's actually 5 more of these things, but that's just too much to have 10 of these in one video. So we'll have 5 in this first video, and then I'm going to shoot another video with the other 5 things. This first one I think is the 5 most important, though. Well, that's not entirely true, because some of the other video are pretty good too. In any case, there's more content coming. I'm sort of ruining the whole thing right now before it's out, but it sort of fits with the questions that you were asking about this, is you want to customize and have those things available. So be looking for that. It'll hit there probably end of this week, hopefully sooner. We'll see how that works out and have those things there. I was going to shoot it today, but usually by the end of this, my voice is gone. So we're not going to do it by the end of today. Another question from the chat room. I know it's not part of the test, Network Plus, but this was part of the computer science networking class. Did you ever have to use NRZI or configure clocks in your job? Absolutely. NRZI, not NZRI, or have I always called it wrong? Now you have to double think yourself for this. But I've set up tons of wide area network connections. So whenever we're talking about Ethernet, for instance, and you're plugging in Ethernet, I've always said you need to make sure that auto negotiation is turned on and that your duplex is set properly. That's sort of the common thing with Ethernet. And in fact, by the way, for somebody, my last job when I was working for someone else was implementing and installing and configuring next generation firewalls. We would all the time plug in a next generation firewall. We plug in an Ethernet connection. Throughput would be horrible because we had a duplex mismatch. Constantly run into this in these large multi-billion-dollar organizations. We got it wrong all the time. So whenever somebody says, whenever you're plugging this in, make sure you check the speed, make sure you check the duplex, we really do mean it. We screw it up all the time. So that's why with Ethernet, you check the speed, check the duplex. With wide area network connections, there are more things to worry about. There are number of bits. There are the size of the particular channel. There is the signaling type that you're using. This type, are you using extended super block? Are you using, what type of zeroing are you using? Are you using NRZI? Are you using NRZI? Those are all different settings for setting up the physical layer of the wide area network connection, of the serial connection coming in from the wide area network provider, and configuring it on a CSU DSU. It's commonly where you put those configuration settings in. So you would set up the CSU DSU to say, we are using extended superframe. We have set this up. Well, if it's extended superframe, isn't it using NRZI? I'm having to go back a number of years on this one to figure that out. But there's all these physical level configurations so that the CSU DSU interprets the signal coming in from the provider in the way that the provider sent it, and could then build the frames to put them on a serial connection that is then sent to a router. Sometimes that is built into a CSU DSU that's in the router, but it's exactly the same process of configuring it in the router as it would be on an external CSU DSU. So yes, absolutely, we have had to set up and use all of these settings for wide area network and configure the CSU DSU with all of those wide area network framing and zeroing settings. Absolutely. Now, the benefit of this, of course, is if it's not right, it doesn't work. So you kind of know when you get it wrong, because sometimes you'll plug in a wide area network connection from the wide area network provider. You plug it into the CSU DSU, and you ask the folks at the wide area network provider, okay, how's this configured? I don't know. They just said, give you a cable. Okay, well, now you got to figure it out. So now you step through all the settings. Let's try extended super frame and NRZI. Does that work? No. Okay, let's try this framing type and this zero type. Did that work? No. How about this parity set? So you go through all of these settings. It's kind of, there's only so many combinations at the end of the day, and usually you can hit it. You can look, well, we've got another one from the same company that we installed last month. What was that one set to? We'll set that one to this over here. Okay, good. So usually you can do that, but it's not always that way. And having it work that way, not always going to work out the way it was there. So it's kind of a pain to get it going, but once you get it, you're done. Once you've figured out the framing type, the zeroing they're using, you've got it all set up, and you're able to receive information properly on your router, you're done. Document it, put it in wherever you document your knowledge base. You never touch it again. But if something happens to that CSU DSU, if it gets hit by lightning, if the power supply blows it up, if something happens to that device and you got to swap it out, the connection from the internet service provider or the wide area network provider doesn't change. The connection to your router doesn't change, but now you got a new CSU DSU with no configuration. Go find your notes, just set it up the same way. So that's one of those that you definitely want to document because you don't have to go through this again. Go through the whole process, especially because usually you're not there. You're on the phone. You're talking to someone else. They're at the facility. The link isn't up to the network, so you can't SSH in commonly unless you happen to have an out-of-band connection available. And even then, how do you get SSH to a CSU DSU you've never set up before? So all of those complications. If the network isn't working, that's when you have to go to work. But if the network isn't working, you can't get into the box to fix it. So you're often telling people over the phone, all right, click the thing that says this, and you're sort of stepping through the raw configurations of this. It becomes pretty useful to know what those are then. Otherwise, you're both stumbling around trying to figure out the framing and the zeros and all of the other pieces that are there. You don't want to be in that situation either. So document, document, document. If you're working in networking, you're going to be doing a lot of documentation. I know we do a lot in security as well for good reason. The type of documentation in security is different. It's more policy type documentation. There is some documentation on configuration and settings, obviously, but most of it, a lot in security is really focused on policy, which is a little more dry. With networking, it's more about configurations, backing up router configs, switch configurations, and just making sure that everything is set up with the base infrastructure there. I think that's the real key. But yeah, I used to do a lot with wide area network connections. So absolutely. We'd have the most fun by sort of going outside the scope of this. There's usually patch jacks, these jacks you can use to patch into the wide area network signals, and you can use those jacks to plug into a protocol analyzer. So you often have to configure the interface for the protocol analyzer with those framing settings because you're going outside the CSU DSU. It's effectively doing the CSU DSU setting so that you can then capture it on the protocol analyzer. So very common to see that and to have that happen, because we would go into a facility, need to troubleshoot, we would jack in to the connection, and then we would have to configure whatever device we were using to be able to make that happen. And then you could run BERT tests, you could run, which are bit error rate tests. BERT test is sort of redundant, but that's what we would say, where you would then send signals out over the wide area network. It would have a loop back on the other side and come back at you. It's kind of like a loop back plug, except the entire length of the wide area network was loop back. So you could really see, are there errors that we're getting in the wide area network itself? And if that came back clean, the problem was with your equipment. So that's one of those situations where it does come in handy to know all of those framing and wide area network zeroing settings, because you may have to use that to be able to run those tests, jack into the connection, do some troubleshooting. Don't do too much of that these days. You know, we're doing more and more Ethernet. They're just handing you off an Ethernet connection these days. The wide area network provider, the local provider is just handing you an Ethernet from their switch, and now you're just plugging it with Ethernet. So it's a little bit different now but not everywhere is that way. One of the things about networking, and one of the things that I love about networking is when you install it, it's there for a very long time. It's very hard to pull out a network connection and put in something new. Usually when you're putting in a wide area connection, there is a contract you're signing with a wide area network provider. It's going to be in there for 2 or 3 years. It's not going to move. And then once it's there and working, do you want to really touch this thing? Do you want to really now change it to something else? There has to be something compelling to make you want to change that. And usually the price goes down. You can plug in, instead of running wide area network serial connections, we can plug in a local Ethernet connection because we're going to somewhere across the other side of town, and we have now 100 megabits. We've got cable modems. We've got gigabit connectivity for well less than what we were paying for these serial wide area network connections. That may be what's driving the change. So very, very useful to be able to shift or know what some of those older things are, because you might run into them. They're just still running in some of those environments. Do I have a list of tools that I would need for a job doing networking? I think the tool list that is in the Network Plus exam objectives is pretty good. And in fact, they go a little bit further. I'm going to grab the exam objectives for the N10-007, because in the back of those objectives, if you've never gotten to the back of these before, there is a very good list of proposed hardware and software list for someone who is setting up a lab. Now, this is really designed for someone teaching the course, but it's really gives you a good idea of some of the things that could really help you. They give you a small list of these in the exam objectives themselves, but look, you got a big list of equipment, spare parts, the software you might want to have, spare hardware, the tools, and other things as well. It's all in here. Now, you don't need all of this to be able to manage a network. I never really ever got a fiber termination kit, as much as I wanted one. They never gave me one of those. I would have loved to learn how to terminate fiber and plug it in. It's just a task you learn, but I never did. That's one that I need to buy a fiber termination kit and do it myself. But other thing, I did have an optical power meter, absolutely, very valuable. I did have a tone generator. I did have a wire cutter, a coax crimper, a cable stripper. So those are good things to have. That's a pretty good list. That's in the CompTIA exam objectives in the back. What page is this? It's the last page of the exam objectives on page 19 of the N10-007. I think this is version 4 of what I have. I don't know if there's a newer version or not, but it's pretty close. But it's the last page. That's what I would recommend you do. Go through that list. There's some good things there. And you can always find things that aren't on that list. There's some great wireless tools. There's some great TDRs that interoperate with your mobile phones these days that bring down the price of a TDR. I have one in here somewhere. It's in the other room. That's just a box, a very small box that talks to your phone over Bluetooth. So you plug in on the two sides of the cable. It runs the TDR test, shows you a wire map, and gives you information about crosstalk and any of the wires that maybe have a fault, and it tells you how far down the line there's a fault. I got that because I was putting in IP cameras, security cameras around the house, and there were some runs that were not connecting properly. So I plugged that in, and I could really see how far down the run are we losing the signal. It says, oh, there's a break 3 feet down or 30 feet down. It tells you exactly where the break is. So at least I could call the wire guy and say, hey, come back out. This wire has a break 30 feet down. And they could replace it. They knew where the problem was because of that. Now, they had the tools as well, but I needed a toy. So I got one myself to be able to do that. The problem with some of those tools, though, especially the ones that interoperate with your phone, some of these companies aren't around for very long. And you have to make sure the software is maintained. It's up to date with the latest version of the operating system you're using. There's some downsides to not having an all-in-one independent box. Get a Fluke TDR. That Fluke TDR is always going to work. You're not going to have to worry about the operating system going out of scope or Bluetooth not working properly. So there's advantages and disadvantages. It costs a lot less, but in the end, it may not turn out to be very useful at all. It may end up being a boat anchor, and that's not what you want either. It's just one of those cases. Well, we've gone through, an hour of this. Oh, very quickly, one more question in the chat room. How much is the retake voucher if I fail? Well, it depends on how you buy it to begin with. First, there is not a retake voucher. There is simply a voucher that you would use. So if you purchase a voucher to take the exam and you fail the exam, you have to purchase another voucher. It's not like you get a discount at that point. There are some bundled voucher offerings from CompTIA where you can buy a voucher that comes with a retake. So it effectively is you use it the first time, and if it fails, if you fail that, you can use that voucher again to take the exam again. And usually the cost of the voucher plus retake is less money than if you took two tests independently, if you bought two separate vouchers. However, if you take the test the first time and you pass it, you've now spent more money than one single voucher. So it's sort of like insurance. You know, you're paying this in the hopes that you will never have to use it. And if you pass it the first time and you paid a lot for the retake and you just don't take the retake, okay. I bought that with the expectation or the hope that I would not have to use it. Some people use it as a different strategy. Some people get pretty much ready to take the exam and they just take it because they know they've got a retake. They take it all the way through to get a feel for how are the questions? What is the experience like? How much time do I really have? What is the process on the screen for taking the exam? So they go all the way through it, and then maybe they don't pass, but now the sort of the fear of the test taking process is gone. They got a feeling, a comfortability with it now. Now they can study. They've even seen some of the questions. They can now study up a little better and understand what the approach will be, what the difficulty level is. And then when they do their retake, now they're ready to go. And hopefully they pass second time through. One of those to be able to do that. So it's one of those. Yeah, maybe that's a good example of that. In the chat room, the Surge says, I bought a voucher plus retake. I passed the first time. It let me relax taking the test the first time because you knew if you failed, you're still okay. You're just going to take it again. That's a very good point. What I didn't think about is that maybe there's a little bit of Zen there. Maybe there's a little bit of you are a vessel of love. You are taking the exam with no worries. You are now not, and maybe the relaxation of not being tense about the results actually make you take the test better. Maybe they should market it that way. I think there's some validity to that. Absolutely. How soon do you get your answers after you take the test? Well, you never see exactly the answers, but you get the results of the exam right after you finish, and it tells you. They actually give you once you finish and you submit the exam, they give you a survey on questions about the exam and questions that are about you, and you have to complete the survey first before they tell you if you passed or failed. I'm not sure if that should be legal, but there it is. They do it. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates it universally. Everyone that I have talked to just puts down whatever so they can get through it. I don't even know if it's that valid, but they do it. They click, and just get through it so they can get their results. Why would you not do that? That's how they do it. I'm not sure if it's maybe a test. Maybe it's a psychological test to see how people answer surveys under pressure. I don't know. Maybe. Fortunately, you cannot fail the survey. So that's fortunately the case. You do have to be careful with this. One of the things that I've also heard about from people that have taken the exam, they go through the survey. The results page says, congratulations, you have passed the exam. And they've gotten up and left the room to tell other people, hey, I just passed the exam. But according to the folks at Pearson VUE, the exam isn't over yet. There's actually kind of a finish button you have to push to technically finish the exam. And they have chastised people who've now come back to their computer saying, why did you leave? We're not done yet. And they're saying, yeah, we're done. It says I passed. That's done. You're pretty much finished. maybe they'll fix that and get the process a little better to figure that out. I'm not sure why it's so important once you see the result that you stick around. You're done at that point. There's no worry about cheating. Nobody's going to be trying to pull a fast one, but they're very focused. They've been taught it's not over until it is over. Their job is to do what their job is. So if you're in that situation, click finish first, get them off the camera, and then you can go tell people. It will make them much happier if you do that. They're very particular rules. They don't like you having your hand over your mouth. Oh, what is the answer to this question? They don't want you with your hand over your mouth because you could be saying something like, you could be talking into a microphone and saying what the question is. And they want, if you're talking to yourself, if you're reading the question on the screen, CompTIAs include this sample list of hardware. And they'll tell you, no, stop talking, because you could be recording yourself saying the question. So there's things like that if you're on an exam, you're kind of this kind of person, they're going to tell you, don't do that. Just be ready. And they're not being mean. It's not about you. That's just their policy. They do it for everybody. So just keep in mind. And for some of those things. Just another thing that they've been told a certain way, and how it works out. That is the scenario. It actually is, I wouldn't say it's in Pearson's interest to make you fail, although I guess technically you are correct. But they're not the ones that are, if more people fail this exam, then more people will not take the exam. So there is a negative to that as well. Quite honestly, Pearson VUE is just the company that is contracted to give the exam. CompTIA is the one that is deciding who is providing that proctor functionality. And currently it's just Pearson VUE. I think they'll probably work on those for this. They'll probably work on the process a little bit as they go along, but that's how it is, at least for now. So we'll have to figure out whether that's good or bad. Well, just know that it's there. And I think if you're taking the exam at home, look through the rules, get a feeling for what other people are saying, go out to the CompTIA subreddit on reddit.com, read the experiences that other people have had taking their online certification exam, and just be ready for it. I think it's the surprise when they say it that is the biggest concern. But if you end up doing this in the exam and you know that they're going to say something and then they do, you're like, oh yeah, of course, well, no problem. And then you just keep going. So a lot of the times it's more about setting the proper expectation than it is the actual issue itself. One of those challenges. So that's the way it is. And people in the chat room are correct. Some performance-based questions, they tend to have more of a problem on the Mac OS operating system than on the Windows operating system. One of the things you'll notice is when the exam starts, it locks out everything else in your computer. And for Windows, they figured out the way to do that well. They figured out how to lock out Windows. Windows has some functionality in it that allows it to be kind of a kiosk mode, if you will, but as it's actually running. Mac OS does not like an application taking that level of control over the operating system because it's a security issue. Why would you allow an application to have that level of control over your system? And so it's more of a perspective of the operating system not allowing it. And what we have found is that some of the performance-based questions don't work very well because of these security settings. Even when it's set up right, even when it is correctly configured, and if you're a Mac OS person, you know there's a whole security section that you would set up what applications have control of the keyboard, what applications have control of the mouse, what applications have control over the camera. And even if you set them up properly, people are still having problems. So that's one of those situations to have that there. And also in the chat rooms, folks saying, I don't like having to disable my firewall on a host for this test. Yeah, there's some firewalls that don't work very well with their software either. That's true. Although there is documentation on the Pearson VUE website that defines what port numbers and applications need to be enabled to allow communication for this app. This is one of those challenges, and I mentioned it back in March when they were deciding to roll this out, is there is kind of a security component to this. You're now trusting that Pearson VUE's app is something that you can trust enough to put on your system. And when you are done, trust enough that you can get it off of your system, because that's not something you want to have people have access to. And I haven't run any tests myself. It would be interesting to do some of the tests where you can install the application and see what changed. What did they change in the registry? What did they add to the operating system? Those would be interesting to do some studies on, just so people have an understanding of what this does on your computer. And when you remove it, are you really removing it? Good questions. I think one of you should be on that right away. I'd like to see the blog posting or the video on that one. Because I just don't have the cycles right now. I just don't have it. There's no extra time in my day, unfortunately. So I'm handing that over to you, the community, to detail some of those things. The problem, of course, is they come up with a new version, and now you have to update all of your testing with this. One of those challenges. But I think you've got it in you. I think some of you can come up with some interesting things there. Well, thank you for being here on the live stream. Thank you for your time in the first hour answering the questions that I had. We'll have a whole new set of questions for you next month, all brand new, all different, except for the first one, which is our rewind question. I think I've said that many times now. Thank you for also being here in the after show, for your questions in the chat room, your questions on the phone calls. We love hearing from you. If you're watching this in the replay and you have questions that you would like to ask, you can always, of course, submit them offline by using the Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Come on back next week on Tuesday, which is a calendar change. Make sure you check the schedule. On Tuesday is our Security Plus study group. We do this whole thing again, except all with Security Plus content. We'd love to have you come back for that one as well. Thank you for being here on this one. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group.